A special TNT today. We're going to cover live the keynote speech from Google I.O. Leo Laporte filling in for Mike Elgin, who's in the room. Coming up, Google I.O. next on TNT.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, June 25th, 2014, a special edition, Google I.O. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by ShareFile. Enhance your workflow, send files of almost any size easily and securely with Citrix ShareFile. Try ShareFile today for a 30-day free trial. Go to sharefile.com, click the microphone, and enter TNT. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used Apple and Android devices are worth at Gazelle.com. It's Tech News Today, the show where we talk about tech news with the journalists who write it. I'm Leo Laporte, filling in for Mike Elgin. Mike, Jason Howell, Jeff Jarvis, Gina Trapani, practically the entire crew right now sitting at Moscone West getting ready for the big Google I.O., and we're going to make this show almost entirely about Google I.O., but before we do, big breaking story this morning. The Supreme Court, which heard arguments in the Aereo case a few months ago, has ruled 6-3 that Aereo does violate the Copyright Act. Aereo, as you know, a Barry Diller startup that received $100 million funding, created a system whereby they'd have small quarter-sized antennas in many cities, starting with Manhattan. Those antennas you would rent, rebroadcast over-the-air television to your iPad and other devices. They had a built-in DVR. I've lost my audio. They have a built-in DVR, and the Supreme Court said that they were basically indistinguishable from a cable company. They had been sued by the networks, which wanted retransmission fees. Actually, they wanted to put Aereo out of business. Aereo, as you know, is done for, according to Aereo. They decided they could not stay in business. Aereo CEO told The Verge, Chet Kanogia, that if Aereo loses in court, it's dead. We're done. That's a big story, and I'm sure we'll have more on that later in the day. But we're going to go right now to Moscone West, where the Google I.O. Developers Conference is about to begin. We're going to stream it live as Google is. You'll see there's the video at google.com/IO, but add our commentary as we like to do during events like this. If you prefer to see it live, there's the countdown clock. Google, very punctual. Without our commentary, google.com/IO is the place to go. There's a view of Moscone West. Thousands of journalists can fit into that space. But remember, this is a developers conference, just as we covered Build Live earlier, WWDC from Apple earlier. These are conferences intended for the developer crowd, so the messaging is specific to developers. But Google knows, and I think a lot of the people in the audience know, that the world is looking with great interest to see what Google will announce at Google I.O. this year. Speculation that they would announce new... Is that a bowling ball? There's clearly going to be a Rube Goldberg machine in action to begin I.O. I don't have audio of I.O. Do you have audio?
No, they're not streaming audio.
Okay. So that bowling ball is... Here's the countdown. Google has done countdowns before at I.O. Last year, they simply had an on-screen countdown. And by the way, we're very accurate. They're a little behind. If that countdown is accurate, unless the stream is way delayed, they're about 7.5 minutes behind. Parmy Olson will be joining us from Forbes a little later on. Kevin Marks as well. It's been difficult to get people to join me for this coverage because almost everybody is in that auditorium. One of the reasons people love to go to Google. There's Parmy. Thanks for joining us. Parmy Olson, writer for Forbes. She just put in her earpieces. Hi, Parmy. We haven't worked together before. I'm Leo Laporte, and I'm glad you could join us today.
Very much. It's good to be here.
Yeah. What do you expect at Google? Look at this countdown clock they've got. This is a great Rube Goldberg device. And apparently, when it gets to 0, that bowling ball is going to roll down a track and something is going to happen.
Larry Page is going to walk out with a brand new Google Glass.
That was the big surprise last year at Google I.O. After the content of the speech, about 2 hours in, Larry did take to the stage, gave a kind of an oddball speech in which he referred to a Google Island that he would like to live on, free of regulation and evil competitors, and then took questions from the audience. And as odd as it was really a welcome speech from the CEO, the somewhat reclusive CEO of Google. What do you think we're going to see today?
Well, there's lots of possibilities for what we could see. The new version of Android, codenamed or rumored to be called Lollipop.
Now, I saw a picture of a lychee nut. Somebody said it might be called lychee.
What other kind of sweet confectionery begins with an L? I don't know.
And maybe they'll do a deal as they did with Kit Kat. There we go. The ball. Oh, no, the bowling ball is slowly ticking towards the end of its run. Maybe we'll see they didn't call it, they said there was no money exchange, but it's clearly an advertising relationship as they did with Hershey or Nestle's Kit Kat. What would L be?
I don't know. I have to think about that. We'll find out soon enough.
Laffy Taffy, says Cassius in
yeah.
our chat room. I don't think so. Android Laffy Taffy. Android Wear will also be clearly a part of the speech. We expect to see perhaps as many as 2 or 3 smartwatches from LG, Motorola, and perhaps Samsung. They also... Go ahead.
I'm really interested to see if they kind of take a leaf out of Apple's book and Samsung's book by doing a health-related data collecting platform. We're hearing it's going to be called Google Fit.
Right.
So
Google's done this before, and I think had difficulty meeting FDA and consumer privacy expectations, and decided to kill their Google Health initiative. So it'd be interesting to see them get back in this.
It's a really gray area because quantifying all that data is one thing, but to make it really interesting and useful to people, you have to make a value judgment on it, give people a little bit of advice. Then you're kind of moving into this gray area of should you be regulated by the FDA? It's tricky.
Apple, of course, met with the FDA, presumably seeking some sort of, if not explicit, tacit approval of what they were up to. There is, there are requirements for security and privacy, regulatory requirements that a company like Apple or Google would have to adhere to.
Right. One of the reports was that they were asking about how a glucose monitor would be regulated, which has a lot of people in the kind of wearable fitness tracking space quite excited because if the iWatch can actually monitor glucose levels non-invasively, that would be a huge game changer in terms of being able to detect, give some kind of very vague insight into someone's passive monitoring of someone's diet.
Hard to imagine how you do that without a pinprick, and yet, yeah, absolutely, people would want that. And it does seem like a medical device, which of course would come under FDA regulation. Exactly.
So the question is Apple going to be kind of moving with its device more into the medical side, notifying doctors, giving them the priority over notifying consumers over a particular change in their data or what's being monitored by the sensors in their device?
Right.
Will Google take a more consumer-related stance? These are kind of the different positions that are kind of being played out by Apple, Google, and Samsung. And the ball's rolling there.
This really feels like something our old chief of engineering, Colleen Kelly, might have built. I feel like... So that's what's going on. So as the clock ticks by, a metal ball bearing, fairly large metal ball bearing gets released and nudges the bowling ball 1 tick closer to its release. Right. So it is now 1 tick away, it looks like, as best I can judge, from freedom. They are a little late, and this is unusual. Google starts on time at Google I/O. They're engineers, and they usually are right on time, but...
they want to be fashionably late.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they're watching the World Cup. I don't know if they planned this right.
I don't know who's playing.
I think Argentina's playing. So this is messy. Very good. You're obviously a football fan.
Well, I have to admit, I'm half Portuguese, so I was cheering for Portugal during that Portuguese-America game. So it was kind of bittersweet when they tied at the end.
Yeah, that was quite a game, quite an exciting game. And, of course, the United States plays Germany tomorrow morning at this time. 1 more tick, and it looks like that bowling ball is free. Fly, bowling ball, fly. 37 seconds to the beginning of Google I/O. We are still not getting audio from this, Anthony. This worries me.
Correct. I have 2 streams open, and I'm not getting audio.
And they're not feeding audio. Chat room, are you getting audio on your feeds? Because it seems odd that there would be no sound at all. There goes 18. 17. I'll do the countdown. Can you? It's 15. You can't see it, but over on the right, the numbers are ticking over. 11, 10. Show the full screen, will you, Anthony? 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. No, there's no audio at home either. Colleen, they need you. Wait a minute. It's going back to 30. That was a little bug.
Oh, this does not bode well for the rest of the...
A tribute to the maker movement, I think. Very clearly a maker device. Homemade. All right, the bowling ball has been released. This is Mousetrap, my friends. Holy cow, it is. A giant hammer hits a spring, starts the video, a trebuchet fires, and there we go. That looks like something. I don't know what's happening. Google likes to have fun with these. And oh my, there's a watering can. Water is flowing out on a giant screen. And a fish swimming in the water. For those of you listening at home, you're missing quite a treat. You might want to go back and watch the video later. And now a giant, what do you call that thing, has rolled down, smashed glass. This is like an OK Go video. Flames, fire, but of course, virtually on the screen.
Someone's going to walk through that. Oh, I.O. That's what it's spilling out.
Spilled I.O. And now the crowd is going wild, but still no audio from Google I.O. That seems like an error on their part. And now this is Monument Valley, the very popular game, which frankly is on iOS as well as Android. There's a few Android icons, some screens. You're right. I think, Parmy, we're going to see the new version.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. New version of Android here. The L word. This looks a lot like the Android ads, the Google ads, the Chrome experiment. So it's not just Android here. And that little nod to football. We can expect to hear not only Android and Android Wear, as Parmy mentioned, perhaps health, home automation, information about Chromebooks, perhaps, Chrome OS. Of course, the developers are all looking under their seats, anxious to find out what gear they get. Traditionally, at Google I.O., very popular for the gimmies.
They don't get very much at WWDC, do they?
No.
From Apple.
Well, they get what they want from Apple, which is information. But I have to think that part of the reason it's so hard to get a ticket to Google I.O. There's the tagline: every little bit matters. Here's to what you build next.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome senior.
The all-important Sundar Pichai, being seen as Larry Page's right-hand man.
And with the departure of Andy Rubin, Hugo Barra, this guy has taken more and more power.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
He was played a key role in trying to get the WhatsApp acquisition, which didn't pan out.
Every year we look forward to this date. We've been hard at work.
Look at his wrist. He's wearing a smartwatch. Looks like that Moto 360 we've seen pictures of.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us in person.
Bring his audio up a little bit if you would.
Global event. We have viewing parties in over 597 locations in 85 countries in 6 continents. And there are over 1 million people watching us on the live stream today. Let's say hello to a few locations. London.
Google still seems to have some trouble with its audio.
Brits are pretty enthusiastic there.
Let's say
Small
hello to
but
Brazil.
proud
Everyone is talking
island.
about Brazil
Yes.
today, so if it weren't for I.O., I would be there for the World Cup.
I think he's serious.
I wonder if Hugo Barra is there.
Somehow I doubt it.
Yes, no.
How about Vic Gundotra? Where's he?
Oh.
I'm tempted
Maybe
to
I'm
shout
still-
goal, but yeah.
You have to
Well,
think that
finally, let's go to Nigeria. We are thrilled to have an all-female developer group in Nigeria, and we've
Diversity.
yeah, this is a response to diversity in 2 ways, of course. But always a big issue in the tech community, and we saw recently statistics from Google of how few minorities have been
forward to
women
seeing
are at
what they
Google.
develop one day.
Yeah.
In fact, at I/O this year,
There's in
we are very
Nigeria, it's
excited.
big.
There is over 20% female participation, which is up from 8% last year.
It's progress.
That's good news, yeah.
And even more excited, we are joined by over 1,000 women in this room today. So thank you.
That's good.
There are 1,000 women in the room.
1,000 women. It's got, I can't remember how big
Of course,
Moscone West is,
I/O
but I
when
think it's
we
somewhere
talk
around
about our
2,500.
Two large
So that's a
computing
good.
Okay.
platforms,
Huh.
open platforms, Android and Chrome, which are built from the ground up for developers like you. Today, we're going to give you an update on the momentum we are seeing in mobile. We are living in amazing times, so we want to talk about the mobile momentum we see and how we are evolving our platforms to support that momentum. And more importantly, we are beginning to think and evolve our platforms beyond mobile. You'll hear about that from us today. And finally, we want to talk to you as developers as to how you can achieve success on top of our platforms, including an update on Google Cloud Platform and Google Play. So let's get started. If you look at global smartphone shipments, the numbers are stunning.
You're watching the
industry shipped
live
over
broadcast
300
of
million
Google I/O in
last
San
quarter.
Francisco. Parmy
They're on
Olson
track
from
to
Forbes
ship
joining me, Leo
well
Laporte.
over
Mike
1
Elgin's in the auditorium along with
this year.
Jason Howell.
So how is Android doing in the face of this momentum? So in the past, we have talked about cumulative activations of Android. We are switching and focusing on 30-day active users who are currently using their Android devices globally. And you can see the number has been doubling every year. We've gone from 220 million to over 530 million as of last year's I/O. We are very excited. As of this year's I/O, we are over 1 billion 30-day active users.
1 billion active users of Android worldwide.
Wow.
The robot is pretty happy as well.
Those are MAUs. we
So
call
let's
them.
internalize what 1 billion users actually mean. Android users on a given day send over 20 billion text messages each and every day. More importantly, perhaps, they take around 93 million selfies every day. The team tells me about 31 million of these are duck faces.
WhatsApp is actually more than 20 billion text messages
We
a day.
estimate Android users take around 1.5 trillion steps per day, and they pull out their phones.
And we know
check
because
it
we're keeping
over
track.
We're
100
tracking
billion
it.
times each
We're
day.
already getting ready for Google
Important
Fit.
use cases which we are working
WhatsApp
on
claims
addressing,
27
and
billion
you'll hear
messages
about
a
it
day,
today.
and that was a year ago.
Developers are building profound experiences on
Gives
top
you
of
some
smartphones.
idea of the scale of
Stories we hear
WhatsApp.
every day. Few examples. In Kenya, 40% of Kenya's GDP flows through M-Pesa, giving unbanked people access to financial transactions throughout the country. Netraji, a company, uses a smartphone and just off-the-shelf accessories to measure your eye prescription. And they are as accurate as $50,000 equipment you find in optometrist offices, providing very, very affordable care to many people. And finally, University of Michigan, they're using, for their patients, they monitor subtle changes in voice quality using their smartphone to detect early signs of bipolar disorder. So the kind of experiences we are seeing on top of these phones are amazing. So far, I've been talking about phones. Let's shift to tablets. We are seeing amazing growth in Android tablets as well. So there is tremendous adoption of these devices. And if
This
you
is
look
somewhat
at how we are
something
doing
Google
vis-a-vis
has
the
lagged
overall
in the past is
market,
in tablet.
Android tablets accounted
There's
for
some rumors they
39%
might
of all
announce a
shipments
tablet
2 years
today, a
ago.
Nexus tablet.
That number
Nexus
increased
8 or
to
Nexus
46%
9.
The 10 is over a year and a half old without an update. The
As of
7 a
this
year
year's
old.
I/O, Android tablets account for
62% global
62%
market share of
the overall
tablets.
market.
That's, of course, the other 38
We
is
don't
probably
include
the iPad.
variants of
Yeah.
Android like Kindle. If you add that, it would go up a few percentage points.
And Android
These are
and
shipment
Kindle,
numbers.
interesting.
Again, we care about
A few
usage.
percentage points. No one
So
knows
we view
exactly.
these as leading indicators of where usage would be. If you take a look at tablet usage, we're going to use YouTube as a way, as a proxy.
And as
to
always with
understand
these
usage.
slides,
A year
there's not
ago,
enough detail to really
the total
understand
tablet viewership
the
of
meaning
YouTube,
here. Is
28%
62%
was from
cumulative? Is it
That
last
number
year
has gone up
only?
again to 42%.
We know it's global.
So we are seeing
Companies
usage
use these
track
slides.
shipments.
Apple's done
We are
it.
very excited people are adopting
Microsoft's
these
done it
devices as
to
well.
show themselves in a good
Another
light,
metric
but
of
they aren't
engagement,
necessarily
app
statistically
installs.
very useful.
app
Right, and the
installs
circles
just
are
this year
completely
alone
unclear
on
as well.
tablet.
Kevin Marks has joined us. Thank you, Kevin.
Hello there.
Former Googler, Apple developer, created QuickTime, proto-podcaster. Some say invented podcasting. Regular on This Week in Google. It's nice to have
Give
you.
you so much credit. I certainly didn't create QuickTime. I just worked on it a bit.
All right. Worked on QuickTime.
Look at a map of the world today. All the regions in blue. Emerging markets, majority of users don't have a smartphone. When I go back home to India and other countries like that, thank you.
Indian
It is
contingent.
exciting to see the impact
I think
In
more
the
Indians
house.
than women,
people's
actually.
lives, but it's disappointing that only
Well, it was
less
true of
than
the Google
10%
stats.
of the population have
Employee
access to
stats.
That's right.
smartphones. We want to change that. So we've been working hard with our ecosystem on a very important initiative, which we call Android One. So let me talk to you about Android One. What we are doing for the first time, if you look at all the OEMs in these countries, each of them has to reinvent the wheel. And in a fast-paced mobile industry, they have to build a new smartphone within 9 months. So we want to pool resources and help everyone. So we are working on
Snoopy in our chat room is
a set
pointing
of
out
hardware
that
reference
over 300 million
platforms.
people in India don't even have electricity.
We identify the components which go into a next-generation smartphone.
And yet that is going to be a big
These
growth
are
market.
high-quality, affordable smartphones. We qualify vendors so that we provide a turnkey solution for OEMs to more easily build a smartphone. In addition to hardware, we are working on software as well. So the software on Android One is the same software you see running on stock Android, Nexus phones and Google Play Edition phones. In addition, through Play, we allow OEMs and carriers to add locally relevant applications on the device.
Android One, is this
which users have
new?
full control over. And
I'm not.
finally,
This sounds
we
new.
provide full
Sounds
automatic
like-
updates.
Is this the
All
silver
software
that
in
people
Android
were
One comes
rumored
from
to
Google,
talk about?
So we will keep them updated.
Well,
just like we
silver
do with
was
Nexus.
Kind of a
gonna be what they were
generic,
gonna
like
rename-
the Nexus
yeah.
replacement. So this sounds like it's Nexus, essentially. Stock Android, auto
Let's
update.
take a look at one example device.
They're
which
trying to
we're
reach
working
these
on.
markets where feature phones are all the rage, and
Right.
people are just
You can see that's
trying
a 4.5-inch
to
screen.
minimize the
It has
time that
features
it
which
takes to get
matters a
to
country
market.
Like India. Dual SIM.
And the key
removable SD
ingredients
cards,
for
and FM
these
radio.
markets,
I'm used
FM
to
radio,
cutting-edge
dual SIM.
phones, and I've been using this phone for a while, and
Yeah,
it is really
Qualcomm
good.
does something
and
like
it
this
costs
already, a kind of
less than
turnkey
$100.
solution to give to manufacturers to quickly make a phone. This is kind of trying to think of a similar product that's already
That
or
makes sense.
service
We
that's
are
already out.
working with many partners. We're going to be launching
they're
this
not gonna
around the world.
manufacture
but we started
them.
this journey in India.
They're
and
giving
we're
them the
launching this
tools,
with
I think,
3
to
OEMs
manufacture
in India
phones
in the
themselves.
fall
It's kind
of
of a
this
turnkey
year.
phone. And
Micromax,
he says under
Carbon,
$100, which of
and
course
Spice.
is
We're
critical.
also working with
And they're the manufacturers.
We are working with carriers in these markets to provide affordable connectivity packages with these devices. What we are excited is this is a leveraged turnkey solution so that at scale we can bring high quality, affordable
competes with
smartphones.
Nokia's
so that we can
Asha
get the next
and
billion
the
people
new
access
X
to
line,
these
which
devices.
Microsoft's going
And
to
we
announce
can't wait to
this
see
week.
the
And
impact that
Mozilla
it
is
would
also
have.
trying to do exactly the same thing with the
Moz-
Firefox phone.
Yep, the Firefox phone.
So we've talked about the momentum in mobile. The next thing we want to talk to you is about how we are evolving our platforms, Android and Chrome. And today, for the first time since we launched Android with the Open SDK, we're going to give you a preview of the upcoming L release.
This is something Google said. We want to give people a little bit more heads up now on Android
You will
releases.
be able to download this later on your development devices. We've been working very hard.
That's great.
This
And
is
you can
one
see
of
the
the
developers
most
are happy about
comprehensive
that.
releases we have done. It has over 5,000 new APIs, and we are thinking about
That's
L release
1,000
not just for
more than
mobile,
iOS 8.
but for form factors beyond mobile.
The
One of
API
the
race
things
is
that we
on.
thought about L, we wanted to take a radical new approach to design. User experiences are evolving rapidly, and we wanted to rethink the user design experience in Android to have a fresh, bold, and new look. To talk about the design for L, let
Patrick
me
Della.
invite Mateus Duarte.
Mateus Duarte. Patrick Delahanty says he has a friend working I.O., and when the bowling ball was released, he heard through the headphones, the trebuchet safety is off. The trebuchet safety is off.
So we challenged
They had it all
ourselves to
under
create a
control.
design that was not just for Android phones and tablets. We worked together, Android, Chrome, and across all of Google to craft one consistent vision for mobile, desktop,
Duarte
and
is
beyond.
Chilean. He is the director of Android
We wanted
operating
a
system
design that was
user
clear and
experience
simple,
at Google, the
and
UI
that people
guy.
would intuitively understand. So we imagined, what if pixels didn't just have color, but also depth? What if there was an intelligent material that was as simple as paper, but could transform and change shape in response to touch?
Some sort of bizarre
This led
haptic.
us to a way of thinking that we call material design.
So, of course, the Fire Phone features dynamic perspective. It looks like this may be a trend with developers trying to create more vivid experiences than just a flat screen on the phone.
It's all been about flat design till now.
Right.
Now it's just about differentiating on top of that.
That's right. We're watching a video right now that doesn't seem to really tell us anything. I see that what they're saying is what autos. I don't know what are they saying.
Well, it looks like cards. It looks like the card layout, but the card layout becoming more dynamic so that you can understand the pieces as they move.
That's right.
That's what it seems to be saying.
Google, of course, switched to that card layout with the arrival of Google Now, and it's kind of now spread throughout their design.
And it's a big part of G Plus as well.
And I'm not sure what it has to do with material design, however.
Drew inspiration from paper and ink. However, unlike real paper,
I know.
ARM digital material.
When I see how Matthias is dressed, I just kind of have a feeling maybe he should not be in charge of the user experience. He's wearing a check jacket and a plaid or paisley shirt.
Maybe he knows something that we don't.
It's style. It's a style. It's a strong style.
Meaning about what you can touch and how it will move. In the real world, every small change in position and depth creates subtle but important changes in lighting.
So they're
and
bringing
shadows.
3D back to the phones. We just got rid of it. We
Will
just
now
got
allow
rid of
app
it, and
developers
now
to
it's
specify
back.
An elevation value for any UI
He's also got
surface.
mutton
And the
chops
framework
that are
will
somewhat
render it
similar to
in
the
correct
beard of
perspective
the
with
protagonist
virtual
in
light
Silicon
sources
Valley,
and real-time shadows.
which was a comedic beard.
Oh,
Maybe not a great facial hair choice.
Material design is beautiful and bold.
That's whatever
because
camera that is they're
any
using on the
typographic
crowd shot is
layouts are
very
simple
good.
and easy to
It
understand.
probably is an
Their
SLR or
content
something
is the
like it.
focus.
That's
So
the
the L preview will allow
depth of
app
field is
developers to
beautiful.
easily colorize all
bokeh.
framework elements in your app to match the theme to your brand. And we're previewing a new support library that we call Palette to easily extract colors from images and really put those vivid pictures front and center.
interesting. Match the palette
We're
of
giving
the
designers
album art
familiar
with the
tools
text.
like baseline grids that work across screens. Grids ensure apps have a consistent rhythm and character, and this will
This
allow
has
you
always
to
been a
start
problem
from
on Android. It was certainly early on, which was the layout seemed fairly haphazard. The kerning and the way icons were aligned just always seemed a little off. Something Apple
now
did
they're
so
trying
well.
to give some symmetry to all of it and have
Yeah.
some kind of grid or foundation that developers can work
Already know
with.
their way around your app, no matter what screen they use it on. And we've also updated our system font, Roboto, so that designers and developers can use one typeface designed and optimized for every screen, from your watch to your laptop to your television.
M. Wags in the chat
So
room
now
says
let's
this
talk
is,
about
this is
animation.
in effect responsive
It's
design for
delightful when
devices,
touch
and I
is
think that's
rewarded with
accurate.
motion. And material surfaces slide around with the physics of cardstock. But they respond to touch with splashes of virtual ink that are like ripples in a pond. As part of the L preview, all of your application's UI building blocks have been updated to include rich animated touch feedback.
Duarte,
Oh, animated touch
And no
feedback.
detail
That's cool.
yeah.
is too small to bring
These
a
things make a
smile to
big
your
difference,
face.
I think.
Like when the
They're
reload
small,
button
but
moves around
when you're
the
actually
playback
using it, it's what they call
controls
this
change.
horrible cliche, but the moments of
Finally, in the
delight
real world,
for consumers.
nothing teleports
Always a
from one
risk,
place
though, and
to
I
another.
think of overdoing it
That's
and
why it's
making
so
a
important
busy
to animate
display or
every
a
change on screen
Right,
in a way
gimmicky.
that makes
gimmicky
sense.
display, yeah.
In
Duarte
the L
first
preview,
started
Android
with
developers will now be
Honeycomb,
able to
the
create
tablet
seamless animations
Android
from any
version that
screen
was not
to
very
any
good.
other between
But his
activities
impact
and
clearly has been
between
felt.
apps.
I think since then, Android's looks better and better and better.
So
Gina
you're
will join us for
probably
Twig later
wondering
today,
how
and of
this
course,
looks like
as a
in
developer,
practice.
we'll be very interested in what
I'm
Gina
gonna
has
give
to
you a
say
sneak
about all
peek
this.
at one of
So
our
much-
familiar Google applications
She's there right now.
in the new material design. Here you can see step by step how we update the design. The typography, the grid changes, and finally the surfaces and bold colors. And a few small changes make a really big difference. And you can also see how easy it is to take that same design to different
I think
screens.
this is kind of in contrast to Apple's developer talk.
I've talked about
really
only a few of the
geeky, really
highlights
getting
of
down to the
material
details of
design
things
and just
developers
some of
want
the
to see.
APIs
Does that feel that way to you,
try
Kevin?
out in the Android L preview. But as we
Yeah,
all
no.
know, people
Well,
spend
Apple's
an enormous
was eventually.
amount of time
I mean,
on the
they,
web,
they did the show and tell at the
especially
front,
mobile web.
like they just did here.
Last year
But
at
yeah,
I/O,
he's going
we
to some depth here
which is
because
a
it's this
powerful new UI
combination of
library
design
for
and programming that's needed.
Right.
Today, we're bringing you all of the material design capabilities to the web through Polymer. As a web developer,
That's interesting.
you'll be
Kind of a
able to build
unity between mobile and browsers.
with all of the same surfaces,
You'll get the
bold
same
graphics, and smooth
tools
animations at 60
if you're
frames per
developing
second.
for the web through something called Polymer. I don't know if that's a JavaScript library. Probably is, right?
So
is a
between the
library.
L preview and Polymer, you can bring the same rich, fluid material design to every screen.
They did say that
And
this
to
would
help
be
you take full
this
advantage of
conference
this framework,
would be
we've also
targeted at design,
completely
at better
redesigned
design.
and created one unified set of style guidelines.
Which is lacking in a lot of products that Silicon Valley brings to market.
And it's certainly something that Android's been criticized over before. I mean, that was the single most common complaint from iPhone users was, it just doesn't look and feel right.
Right, and they really get that from the iOS experience. So I almost feel like the changes with the circles of the circle pictures remind me a little bit of iOS 7.
And now
Yeah.
that you've seen our new look and
You'd
feel,
expect that, I
I'd like
guess,
to invite
a
Dave
certain
Burke to show you some
commonality.
of the new features in the Android L
You don't want
developer
it to look
preview.
completely different. Now Dave Burke, Director of Android Engineering, takes the stage.
All right, so over the last 8 months, our team has been busy cooking up the biggest release in the history of Android. And as Sundar mentioned, we've added over 5,000 new APIs, touching nearly every aspect of the system. Now, we don't have time to even come close to covering everything in L today. So instead, what I'd like to do is walk you through some of the highlights of the tremendous steps we're taking on the user experience and on the performance of the underlying platform. So let's start with user experience. Now, bringing material to L is, of course, a big part of what we're trying to do here. We've added a new material theme, so it's a new style for your application that includes new system widgets,
This is really getting,
transition animations,
this is almost the kind of
animated
stuff
touch
you'd
UI.
have at a
We've also added new
track
animation
at a,
support.
you know,
So
later,
a new drawable for
rather
animated
than at the
ripples,
keynote.
a reveal animator to animate a clipping circle to reveal views.
Sounds like
We've
Google is
extended
not
views
going to
not just
reveal
have an
what the
XY
L will
component,
stand for at
but
this
also a
point.
Z component to
They're gonna
provide
say it at the end,
elevation.
maybe, whereas
Maybe they'll reveal at the
Apple
end. Lollipop.
And the framework will cast a real-time shadow.
yeah, it's funny. Apple,
Licorice.
like
My
the
favorite
first
feature
thing
that
they
we've
said
added
was to call it
is
Yosemite and then
material is
go
the
into all the
ability to
features. They're kind of
Yeah.
going back to
Entry and exit
I think if they were going to name it, they would
You
have
can even
started.
include a shared
Otherwise,
hero
you have all
element.
these
For
L
example,
things.
an
in
image
it.
that starts in one activity
I suspect
and
they're just
animates
not gonna
seamlessly through
tell us.
translation and scaling into another. So let's take a look at this in
mulling it over.
practice. Let's have a look at an app we're all familiar with, which
Maybe
is
they
the
haven't
phone
made
dialer.
the deal
Thanks,
yet
Marcelo.
with the candy
The deal
company.
with Laffy Taffy.
Laffy
Okay, so
Taffy
the
has
first thing
not
you'll notice-
signed on the dotted line.
When you find out the phone
They've got
dialer,
someone over there
there's
trying to
material
ply him with booze.
and shadows. And you'll see the
We've decided,
ripple
Kevin,
touch
that L
effect
must stand for
as I touch
Laffy
each of these
Taffy. We
tabs.
can't find another
You get a more subtle material touch
appropriate.
effect on the recent calls.
L.
You'll see that the dialer button has its
I'm
elevation.
thinking about that one now.
set, so it's
Lint.
floating above the UI.
Lint.
And as I tap it, you get these really nice.
With the
delightful
Swiss chocolate.
animations. Now,
Ola NDT? I don't think so.
is something we
They're
call
going to do another branded
scrolling.
one.
And the idea
Lint,
is,
no.
as I scroll, you propagate the scroll events up the UI.
washing machines.
And different
Yeah.
parts of your views
Navels.
can respond differently. So for example, as I scroll upwards here, you'll notice that the recent call to Marcella will start to shrink and disappear. Then the search box will start getting pushed upwards and the tabs will lock into place. It's a really nice effect. So let's go over to the dialer. So it turns out my mom's a big fan of material design. I need to go call her up and tell her about how to set elevations on her views. I know she loves that. So let's go start dialing. And you'll see that ripple touch effect again emanating out from the buttons. Then when I go to place a call, you'll see a view animator and will animate into the in-call screen like so.
I think you're right, Parmy. These
nice
are
effect.
little moments of delight that do, in fact, enhance the experience.
So that's a quick taster
and it feels more
material in
responsive.
L. What you're seeing here is really a sneak peek of work in progress. We wanted to give you guys early access so you could start bringing material to your apps.
Context.
And we also recognize changing the UI.
Was that an Android UI, not a web UI, right?
So we started with the dialer.
Well, but you mean
they're trying to unify both?
They're going to unify them. That's right. They have some sort of library or technology they call Polymer that will give you web designers the same UI pieces.
Okay. So another
they did warn us that design would be a big part of Google I/O this year, and boy, that's true.
One of the most frequent reasons we all take our phone out of our pocket every day.
Notifications are somewhere Android's really led the crowd, I think.
We all do this dozens and
Apple's
dozens
playing
of
catch up
times
on
a
these.
day. So we wanted to streamline the process. Everything from the phone buzzing to you acting on the notification. In L, we give you instant interactive access to notifications right from the lock screen. So now you can
Of course,
read,
you have to
open,
consider
and dismiss
wearables
in
when you're
seconds.
considering notifications.
So let's take a look at my device. The first thing you'll see are all my top notifications on the lock screen. And we're rendering them as sheets of material.
Again,
they animate really
cards.
beautifully. If I touch them, you can see that material touch effect. Now in L, we've improved the way Android organizes and prioritizes notifications by analyzing user behavior to make sure only the most useful, relevant.
Once again, this is Dave Burke, Director of Android Engineering.
I can swipe down.
This is really material that developers want to know about.
And we've done a clever thing here where we merged the
pieces.
notification shade, so something that's been in Android since 1.0, with the lock screen. And so from here, I can double tap on a notification to launch the corresponding app. Or if there's something I don't need, I can just dismiss with a single swipe. And to unlock the phone, well, this is just the notification shade. So you just swipe it away, and you're straight into the device. Fast and simple. We've also introduced a new type of notification in L that we call a heads-up notification. And this can be used to let you know about something urgent without interrupting what you're doing. So let's say I'm playing my new favorite game, which is piano tiles, and I'm going along here, about to get my highest score ever, and then all of a sudden I get a call from Marcelo. So from here, I can keep going, or if I want to act on it, I can answer it, or if I'm busy, swipe it away. And then I can go back to my game with the highest score that I've ever got in public.
Doesn't stop the game.
Yeah, all right. That's actually my worst score I've ever got. Okay, anyway, let's move on. So while we've made the notifications more powerful, if you're one of the approximately 50% of people who has a pin or pattern lock, you waste many minutes a day cumulatively on that fiddly task of entering your pin. So we figured there's got to be a better way. In L, we're introducing a new concept we call personal unlocking. And personal unlocking enables the device to determine if it's in a trusted environment, say in the owner's hand or beside the owner on a table. Personal unlocking uses signals such as location.
A little buffering here. Dave currently has 439 followers on Twitter. I think
Bluetooth devices
he's going to reach 500 before the end of this talk.
So, for example, let's have a look at this device. Thanks, Marcelo. So I currently have a pattern lock on this device. But because I'm wearing a Bluetooth watch, my phone knows it's me who's present.
Is he?
And so it doesn't challenge me with an unlock. So for example, if I just swipe up, the phone will unlock just like that. Now, let me reset that. If I take my watch off, let me just hand it to Marcelo. Okay, so now my phone
Sundar Pichai was wearing a round-faced watch, which seemed reminiscent of the Moto 360. This was square.
My phone will lock down its security. So now when I go to unlock the device,
was wearing. I've got to pay attention to these
with a pin lock. It's a really great feature.
So the wearable becomes the identifying device.
Yeah.
Security feature.
Interesting.
So that's a few of the user experience improvements we've made.
The Gear 2 does that. It can unlock the phone.
Another area of L where we're significantly improving the user experience is around how we've integrated the mobile web into the platform.
He's holding a Nexus 5.
To learn more, let me invite up Avni Shah to the stage.
This might be a good time to mention our sponsor. We want to thank the folks at Citrix ShareFile for making it possible to bring you this Google I/O keynote. If you share files in business, you know that I say don't open and don't send email attachments, and yet every time I mention that, because it's, of course, a big risk in business, people say, but I have to. I need to. I need to send that presentation of the contract. How am I supposed to get it to my client, my colleague, my prospective employee without an attachment? Citrix ShareFile. It's what I use to send audio files to the radio stations I work with, and I highly encourage you to try it. No bounce backs. You can send files up to 10 gigabytes in size. You control who has access for how long, the level of permissions, and you can access ShareFile yourself from anywhere, laptop, tablet, smartphone, work on the go. I want you to try ShareFile. We have a special offer for you when you visit sharefile.com. Click the microphone at the top of the homepage. Enter TNT as your offer code, and you get 30 days free. Please do that microphone at the top of the page, though, where it says podcast listeners. Sharefile.com. Click the microphone at the top of the page. Enter TNT. Do pick your industry so it'll customize it. It's HIPAA compliant with SEC regulations. That privacy, that security, very important. That's why people use Citrix ShareFile. That's why we use it. Try it today, free for 30 days. Citrix ShareFile at sharefile.com. Please use the offer code TNT so Mike gets credit. We go back to Google I.O. Avni Shah is Director of Product Management for Chrome.
A core part of your experience with mobile devices is the mobile web. Just to get a sense of the growth that we've been seeing, at the beginning of last year, we had 27 million monthly active users of Chrome on mobile. Today, we have more than 300 million. That's 10x growth. Yeah, it's awesome. It's 10x growth in just the last year alone. And what that means for us is that we need to make the mobile web work well for our developers and our users. Today, I'm going to talk about 3 ways we're going to do that. We're enabling material design experiences on the mobile web. We're redesigning recents to help you multitask. And we're extending our capabilities of app indexing to help people get to where they want to go faster. So first, let's talk about material design. One of the big parts of your experience with the mobile web is, well, obviously, the websites themselves. They need to work well. They need to look great. They need to be fun to use. You heard Matthias earlier talking about the philosophy of material design, a bold, consistent, intuitive experience that just works across screens. Well, we've been working really hard at making those experiences not just possible, but the new standard for the mobile web. To show you what this looks like, my good friend Tom here,
I'm not sure what she's wearing. Each of them has had a different smartwatch. That looks like a Nano.
Re-envisioned material design. Samsung Gear?
Maybe. One of the problems, of course, that these smartwatches have is that on women, they don't often they look a little clunky.
Yeah, small wrist.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can bling it up. I saw an executive from Samsung wearing one of those, and she had diamond-encrusted gear. There were like 10 diamonds studded around the bezel.
That does look like a gear, doesn't it?
If he scrolls, the header will shrink.
Yeah.
It won't pop into place, but it has a
But they've all got them turned off. None of the screens have lit up, which is not the typical behavior of these devices. So they clearly don't want you to see what's on the screen at this point.
They don't want to be a distraction.
Tom's going to continue to give us some demo eye candy over
here.
They're in
Keynote mode.
And while this is just an exploration that you're seeing, I want to mention that this is fast,
so this is mobile
fluid,
Chrome.
Continuous animation at 60 frames per second. This thing wasn't possible a year ago.
There was a rumor, a lot of talk a couple years ago about Chrome and Android merging together, which never really panned out. But there have been a lot of steps since then to kind of create a deeper integration between those two platforms.
I think when Andy Rubin left and they gave Android to Sundar Pichai, that was kind of, at least organizationally, seemed like that's what they were up to.
The mandate. That feel as awesome as this. The next big area we've been thinking about is how to help you multitask.
Kevin, that implies the 60 frames per second GPU acceleration on the mobile browser. Is that right?
Both the web and apps.
Yes, but it also implies more subtle work about making sure that you're not hogging the processor, which is something they've talked about at previous I.O.s. The problem being that Android makes it easier for you to do stuff in the background, so it makes it easier for things to judder compared to iOS.
And it's always a problem, even on desktops, that browsers can easily peg the CPU.
Yeah, but they are able to use GPUs now too.
Yeah.
A lot of the pegging is Flash that's not using the GPU.
Well, they really like this card interface. They're extending it now to the browser.
Yeah.
Here's individual items. You'll notice the site icons of the fav icons.
Chrome's a bit like that already, but yeah.
As he scrolls back a bit further, you'll notice he's been researching.
Now this is the mobile homepage, the screen. I'm not sure what we're.
So let's go ahead and click on that.
Is this the browser on the homepage? I guess.
Yeah, that's the Chrome browser on
in a page mode of
on the phone. So that's like in the page mode. Yeah. So when you click on the
provisions, let's check out that article here.
Where is it?
And of course, Andy Rubin hasn't left Google, but he just
Now,
left
what you see here is this loads.
Android.
This is actually loading as a
working on
website in Chrome.
moonshots
You'll
now.
notice the URL up at the top.
I mean, it's
Now,
that
Tom
mode
pops
which.
it back into recents. That page is now listed there, along with all of his other open stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But it looks a lot better now.
It looks much prettier, yeah. But
yeah.
It already has that layered tab thing going
Right.
on. But they just made it
And
nicer.
those tiny targets, those little X targets,
Yeah.
which I can never
That's-
hit.
But by
They're still
bringing
there,
all
by
your
the way.
individual Chrome tabs
Yeah, but they
here,
need to fix
listing them
that.
in your
That's-
That's a card. That really is the card interface.
Well, you can throw them
taken
away,
over.
but that's still
Right.
you can do that
It's
with
a
them.
lot
But
cleaner than what you were showing
It
us
is,
now. A little
isn't
bit
it?
more minimalist.
And it's also clearer what's going on, I think.
yes, no, they've actually thought about the space thing properly, which is the point of this material design thing. They're thinking about things actually on top of each other and not, and making them move fluidly.
You don't have to pack all the different functionality into one screen or one window.
Right.
And this also is going to be the recents will show up as these cards now, not just in Chrome, but the recents in general. But the issue is, of course, that you'll have to be using pure Android, not a Samsung or HTC modified
You get
version.
your users to app content
But
directly
of course,
from the
that's what
search
Google
results
wants you
page.
to use.
Since then, we've been working on a ton of UI improvements and extending some APIs to make this more powerful. But let me just give you a quick refresher of what this capability enables. So let's go ahead and do a search for Water Bar Restaurants. I've heard good things about it over by the Embarcadero.
She is really up
As
on the
Tom
San
scrolls
Francisco
through the
restaurant
search
scene, I gotta
results,
say.
you'll see Close to the top,
Water
there's a
Bar's
link
very
to the
nice. They have
homepage
the
to
Water
Water
Bar oysters
And
now.
near the
Yeah, but
bottom
I
of the
like
screen,
State Bird Provisions as
there's
well,
a-
which she showed earlier.
actually in the
She's
middle of the screen,
clearly a
there's
foodie.
Result for OpenTable. Now, what's different about this UI is this link to OpenTable, instead of going to the website, is actually going to take us to the OpenTable app because Tom happens to have the app installed. So let's go ahead and click on that link.
Take that, Facebook.
And you'll see it
That's
takes us directly to
interesting. This is
Waterbar
kind of the
within
whole
OpenTable
promise
app.
of the mobile web is you flit between apps rather than between websites in a browser.
Yep.
Up until now, this was only available to a few applications, but today we're opening it up to all Android app developers globally, along with some tools. to
Really
make
blurring the difference between an app and the browser, which
Well, they've had this for a while. They've had the ability
And going
to
further, if
insert
your
an app
site
link in the
requires-
browser, but you had to be a
your app
partner.
requires your users to sign in. You'll be able to use Google Plus
So now they're
sign-in
making it a
in
lot
the
easier
coming
for
months
developers
have your
to
public
do that.
content
They don't
shown
have to be a partner.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, we thought this would be even better if we could help your users rediscover content that they've already found in your apps. So we're adding a new API in Google Play Services to do just that. So let's quickly show you how this works. Tom found this really cool 3D tour of the ferry building earlier, and he wants to get back to it. So starting with the search box on his home screen, he's going to do a search for ferry building. And what you'll notice at the bottom of the screen is there's a search suggestion for ferry building marketplace in the Google Earth app. And this is there because this was the app that he was using when he found that tour before, even if he himself didn't remember. With a single click, he'll get taken directly to the tour of the ferry building within the Google Earth app.
this is how people use mobile. I think that the idea that you have a lot of
Now, this is
apps,
possible because the app is
but
making
then
its
can
content
integrate them into
available
how you
based on
use
its
it.
users' previous
Exactly, they have to
actions.
start talking to
We
each
just
other.
showed you
Yeah.
this with Google Earth, but any
Of course,
app
Apple
that
has
utilizes this new API
kind of
will
begun
have
that
the same
process with
capability.
extensions, but
For developers,
Android's always
this is
had
a great way for
considerable
you to
amount of
help your users
capability.
Yeah, it's
rediscover
really
content
between apps
right when
has
they're
always been there, but
Yeah.
making it more fluid
With
is
that,
cool.
I'll hand it back to Dave, who's going to take you through some more of the enhancements you can look forward to in L.
Avni Shah, who's a Chrome product manager.
Thanks, Avni. So we've covered some of the highlights of the user experience, but there's lots of other user experience improvements in L. For example, a new keyboard UI, do not disturb mode, new quick settings, and much, much more. But in the interest of time, let's move on to the second major theme of L, and that's performance. Let's start with the Android virtual machine. So you might remember that we made a very early version of our new runtime, Art, available as a developer option in KitKat.
People are wondering why presenters look down. They're looking down at large screens at the base of the stage, which usually have their scripts, their slides, and may even have a full teleprompter down there.
Because the L release runs exclusively on the new Art runtime.
Is that shot?
So we wrote Art from the ground up to
gorgeous
support
camera.
a mix of ahead-of-time compile, just-in-time compile.
Sounds like you want that camera.
Dalvik, of course, is the runtime in standard installations of Android, even all the way up through 4.4.4. But Art is available if you're in the developer mode. This is going to be the new default runtime.
Yeah, you can switch your phone to this now, and originally didn't recommend it, but maybe more doable now.
You know, I've been using Art on some of my phones without problem, but there are some apps that break under Art. Presumably, now that Art is the default, they'll not break anymore. I'm not sure what the big differences are. I know the differences in the technology, but I'm not sure from the app's point of view. Dalvik is what we call a just-in-time compiler, and Art actually pre-compiles and presumably gives you some speed improvement as a result.
Reduced from 2 to 1, but also the pause duration has reduced from roughly 10 milliseconds down to about 2 to 4 milliseconds.
Somebody said L should stand for Locutus of Borg.
No more application stutters.
I don't think that's a good name. So again, don't move over to Art yet, but the next version, the L version, Art will be the default.
It's smart about when the app is put into the background, in which case we'll apply a slower but more intensive moving collector to save anything from hundreds of kilobytes to many megabytes. And finally, Art is fully 64-bit compatible.
Aha.
In fact, we've adapted and optimized the entire platform to take advantage of.
Kevin, this is a response more to Apple than to actual consumer need, or not.
Larger number of registers, newer instruction sets,
64-bit
addressable space.
I think it's the value is it makes it faster for the users too.
And you can get more RAM, and I guess we're going to start seeing 4 gig and up phones.
It's future-proofing.
Yes,
it's future-proofing, and it's a check mark next to Apple's processor. They need to have to. Qualcomm is working on 64-bit.
Okay, so that's CPU performance.
ARM processors.
The other side of the coin is GPU performance, graphics, and I'm really excited about some of the things that we're doing in L in this area. So, historically, mobile graphics has lagged desktop by virtue of the fact that mobile GPUs are smaller and more power constrained. But that's changing quickly. Mobile GPU performance is catching up with console graphics and even PC graphics. So in L, we specifically wanted to close the gap between desktop DX11 class graphics capabilities and mobile. And we're doing that with something we call Android Extension Pack.
You're watching a special breaking news version of Tech News Today covering the Google I/O conference, and this is the keynote speech. We expect it will continue for a couple of hours. Then we'll do Windows Weekly, and we'll have a special edition of This Week in Google. Jeff Jarvis and Gino Trapani, who are in the audience today, will come up and we'll analyze all of this.
Let's take a look at the Android Extension Pack in action. And what you're about to see is epic,
of course, the big story today, besides Google I/O, is 2 very important Supreme Court decisions. One, a ruling that Aereo does violate copyright, means that Aereo probably, in all likelihood, is going to go out of business. A victory for the television networks. And a decision that you do have to have a warrant in many cases to search the contents of your cell phone. Most phones now are coming with dedicated GPUs, Adreno, and other processors. This is something that makes a lot of sense. Apple announced something they call Metal, which effectively was DirectX for iOS. That'll appear in iOS 8, which allowed game developers to take better advantage of those GPUs. I guess that's kind of what... Oh, great, Flappy Bird. It'll be better Flappy Bird. I guess that's kind of what Google's announcing here.
Right. That's going to be tougher for them because Apple only has like few SKUs and they control them all, so they can make that much easier for the game developers.
They know exactly what coprocessors you're using, what GPUs you're using.
Hopefully we can get that up in a moment. Some of the rendering that you saw there was truly incredible. So there were really amazing reflections in the water, lighting effects, tessellation.
Aereo's CEO in a blog post says, "We are disappointed with the Supreme Court decision, but we are not done."
And phones shipping on
so
Android
that is a little different.
Graphics capability. So quite literally, this is PC gaming graphics in your pocket. The last performance enhancement I want to take you through is on battery. And we've worked hard to make sure that the battery keeps up with the performance.
Chet Kanogia of Aereo had said we'll be out of business if we lose this case, but now they're saying maybe not.
GPS CPU, etc.
He also quotes Justice Scalia's dissent, which says the majority's opinion is built on the shakiest of foundations. It was a 6-3 vote in the Supreme Court.
It's not like they can appeal that decision, though.
No, that's it. He says, quote, "We're disappointed in the outcome, but our work is not done. We will continue to fight for our consumers and fight to create innovative technologies that have a meaningful and positive impact on our world." I wonder what that means. Maybe Plan B, whatever that might be. Back to I.O. They're talking about Project Volta.
So we created a tool that we call Battery Historian, and it helps you visualize on a time
This is a huge need, and notice they're
now you can correlate battery discharge with
logging wake locks, which are the biggest problem.
So here's an example of Battery Historian from a real device. And on the top graph, you can see an issue where the radio is waking up approximately every 20 seconds. But Battery Historian helps us quickly identify the issue so we could fix it.
This is one of the biggest problems in smartphones. Apple has addressed this by finally giving you battery history of any kind, an iOS 8, at least app by app. But this is a little bit more granular.
We've also added a new job scheduler API to help you optimize power consumption in your apps.
Can actually be the difference between buying a Samsung or an iPhone.
Absolutely, it's the most important stat in many cases that we report on is what is the real battery life.
As a result, the platform.
Is there somebody yelling in the background?
Yeah, I was wondering that. Someone at the conference, some heckler maybe.
We were told that hecklers, you know, the anti-Google San Francisco contingent would be dressed as stormtroopers out front. Maybe some have gotten in. Remember, Google is kind of one of the
So you can use the job scheduler API
targets of ire from San Francisco housing activists who believe that
or also even just a
Google and other tech companies who
bust
bust their employees up to San Francisco are unfairly raising housing costs.
Like, no. And then finally, we've added a new battery saver mode in L. So battery saver allows you to clock down CPU.
This is something both Samsung and HTC have done very well in their latest handsets.
And you can trigger it manually or configure it to
It was a
come on
protester.
automatically when
I
the
just saw on
battery
Twitter.
level is low.
Yeah.
Someone got in front of the
Battery saver
stage.
is really
Apparently,
great
a San Francisco resident being evicted.
Or maybe a long protest, and to say you want the battery to last even longer.
Yeah, he just referred to it. He just referred to it. A long protest. You want more battery life during your protest.
That was good.
So on a Nexus 5 running in battery saver mode, you can extend your battery life by up to 90 minutes of usage within a typical single day's use. So I just gave you a quick whirlwind tour.
It's a good name for their battery project, Project Volta.
Through steps like improved design, smarter notifications, and intuitive authentication. And also the enhancements on the performance side, so faster runtime, better graphics, and stronger battery performance.
Google did say
But I only
this.
scratched the surface of
The
L.
bits of this,
And as I
the
mentioned
developer
at the start,
preview would
this
be
is our
available
biggest release to date.
at
You're going to find
I/O.
things like better multitasking, Bluetooth 4.1,
Developers
burst
can
mode
get to
camera
work right
APIs,
away.
USB audio support, and much, much more.
L.
Tomorrow morning, we're going to be making the L Developer Preview SDK available from developer.android.com, and also posting early system images for the Nexus 5 and Nexus 7, so you can start developing for L today. So with that, let me hand back to Sundar. Thank you.
David Burke, Director of Engineering at Android, getting some applause from the developers who are happy to be getting the bits so they can get to work on the next version. We don't know when it will be available to consumers.
As Dave said, the L release with 5,000 new APIs is one of our most comprehensive, and we are very excited we are sharing it today. We have a whole new design with L, tons of UX features.
And good news for Nexus 5 and Nexus 7 owners. L will work on it.
And you look at what we are doing with Android, the approach we are taking is very unique and distinctive. We aren't building a vertically integrated product. What we are doing is building an open platform at scale. We work with hundreds of partners globally to bring a product and a platform that touches billions of people. And we want to do it in a way in which we are innovating at a very, very fast pace. If you take a look at the innovation that's happening in Android, and if you look at some of the recent announcements from others, you can see that things like custom keyboards, widgets, those things happened in Android 4 to 5 years ago. We are working very, very hard to bring an open platform and innovate on it at an unprecedented scale. We want to make sure we ship these features to users as fast as possible.
I wonder if there'll be any mention of
come.
the toxic hell stew
Google Play services
Apple called Android.
every 6 weeks. And 93% of our users
Tim Cook seemed to
are on the
really
latest
enjoy showing
version
that
of
pie
Google Play
chart of
services.
Well, here's the response. 93% of users are on the current version of Google Play services.
By shipping every 6 weeks,
That's the response. They may not have the latest version of Android, but they are using the latest Play services.
It's an open platform, and we want to innovate
Hey,
fast.
it's a high number. Throw it up there.
It's very, very secure as well. So we take security very seriously. Let's take an example at malware production.
This is a
On Google
big
Play,
problem for Android.
We automatically scan every single application for malware.
I think they do actually a pretty good job.
We even scan applications from outside of Google Play to make sure they are malware
guard the store as tightly as Apple does.
Of Android, there's a whole vested industry.
But they scan every app as you download it, not looking for generic attacks, but actually for.
Less than 0.5% of users.
It's a real problem for people in China who don't have access to Google Play.
Right.
They're getting all their apps from third-party services.
Right.
Through Google Play.
This is a
updates related to Google server communication.
pitch for Google services, frankly.
Google Play services, so that we can get them to users.
Of course, there are a lot of Android phones that use AOSP, but don't use the Google services. They're not handset alliance, and they'd like to get 100% of them back in the fold.
Users have full control to disable their phones.
That's the kill switch.
Privacy is an important part of security. So with L release, for the first time, we have a centralized setting, what we call universal data controls, where users can go and manage their important privacy protections. They can control data that is shared from the device, like location history, etc. And so we are doing that in L as well.
So they're going to send patches now through Play services, bypassing the carriers and manufacturers. That's one way of responding to this toxic health stew.
In the context of mobile phones and tablets.
Why weren't they doing that before?
Users increasingly
well, because I guess you've got different versions of Android. It's a little tricky. You go back as far as 2.3, patching it. It's a little tricky.
Television in your living
Play is the one thing that everybody has that's updated, though. So they can
But
use
that's
that
the key, yeah. They've got 93% of users on Play.
You expect a connected experience.
Updated Play.
We want to work to create a seamless experience across all these connected devices.
There's a watch, there's a car, there's a house, there's a TV. Rumors strong that we'll see some sort of Android TV at the show.
To support these new connected experiences. So here are a few principles. We are making everything contextually aware. We want to understand whether you're home with your kids and you want to be entertained, or you're at work trying to be productive, or maybe you're traveling. We want to bring the right information to you at the right time. We want the experience to be voice-enabled. We are building the most advanced voice recognition infrastructure in the world, and we want to help users interact with computing devices in an intuitive way. For example, when they are driving or cooking, we want voice to be a major source of input. We want the experience to be seamless. It shouldn't matter which device you were using before. We want to pick up where you left off. And finally, users always have their smartphone. So we want to make sure all these connected experiences work based on your smartphone, be it your wearables, be it your car, or like we have shown with...
It's really not much of a surprise that the kinds of things he's talking about here are the kinds of things Apple talked about at WWDC with iOS 8.
Bringing a whole set of new experiences.
Right, and in particular, the connectivity, or what was it, the continuity between devices.
Apple calls it continuity, Sundar called it seamless, but the same idea, exactly.
Yeah. Although I don't know that Apple was too pushing the contextual awareness aspect. That kind of veers a little bit into the gray area of privacy.
Well, they've got Nest, don't forget, and that's...
Right.
All right, now we're going to see some Android wear. David Singleton is Director of Engineering for Android, and...
We're right at the beginning in a new phase in the miniaturization of technology, which means that it's finally possible
watches
to make a powerful computer
what is he wearing?
enough to wear comfortably on your body all day long.
And there's a huge picture of the Moto X, or Moto 360, I should say, on the screen. That's probably a Galaxy,
and that's why we're building
a Samsung device.
Wear as our platform for wearables based on Android. Android Wear makes it easy for developers to reach users on this new form factor using precisely the same tools we're already familiar with on Android phones and tablets. People will be wearing these small, powerful devices, so style is important. And that's why Android Wear supports both square and circular screens.
Well, there you go. There was some
wide variety of
question about a circular screen. The Moto 360 is circular because nobody seems to make these parts.
So they can provide useful information when you need it.
But clearly the software supports it. So.
And as the device that you always have with you, your watch
Android users check their phones on average 125 times a day.
And as Dave showed us earlier, act as your key in a
I think that's about right.
world. Across the world, people check their Android phones an average of 125
Sorry, I
times
just saw that come
every
up on
day.
Twitter. That's why
That's okay. Twitter's a little faster than the Google I/O feed. That's fine.
Information. And make sure you
That's
never
crazy the amount of
like
times. I don't think I check my phone that much.
stay engaged with the people that you're actually with. We do this.
Well, that's only
by
about
working
8
to
times an
understand
hour.
the
That's
context
not.
of what you care about.
If I'm just sitting there reading it for an hour, what does that count as?
Yeah.
Here's a live demo on the LG G Watch.
Every 8 minutes. Every 7 or 8 minutes. That's about right.
That at any given time.
Okay, here's a
chooses
watch.
the
He's
most
showing
important thing we
is this the
know for
LG?
you. So Jeff, it looks like your flight to Brazil for the World Cup is on
It's
time.
the LG G
I guess you
watch.
do deserve a break after this big demo. And if Jeff wanted to see more, he can simply
Square,
raise his watch or tap
clunky,
the screen
very much like
to
the
switch
Gear
into
2.
vibrant full color that you're already seeing here. Throughout the day, if Jeff receives a notification which buzzes his phone, his watch will vibrate on his wrist and show him what's up at a glance, so he won't miss an important message like this one. Swiping up and down navigates you
They're
through
actually
the
demonstrating with
stream of
this with
cards, which includes
live
information from Google Now,
phone.
apps running
This
on
looks
Jeff's
good.
phone, and apps running directly on the wearable itself.
That's nice with the back screen.
Yeah, you see the context picture if you have one.
You can see that we've applied material design here.
And they have
The
a
cards
desktop
float above
that's
beautiful textured backgrounds.
appropriate to what you're looking at.
And
Wallpaper.
just like in your phone's notification shade, you can swipe a card away to remove it from your
That's
screen.
nice.
Let's take a
Swipe
look at
away
Jeff's
notifications off
phone, and
to the
that
right.
notification has disappeared. Back at the watch face, pressing and holding lets you choose a different one.
They've spent some time on the UI,
You can see that
obviously.
there's a broad selection of analog and digital design.
This is the
and a variety
LG
of
G
styles to
watch
suit your
we're looking at.
taste. Okay, now that we're acquainted with the overall UI model, let's see how Android Wear can work for you. Imagine that Jeff has just got up in the morning. He swipes up and sees the weather forecast for the day. His commute's not looking too bad.
This is
And,
Google
oh,
Now,
Jeff, I guess
basically.
you need that package for your trip to Brazil. You better not forget to pick it up.
Okay, Google. Remind me to check my mailbox when I get home.
Always listening mode.
Now, if we can see Jeff's phone at the same
He
time,
didn't touch anything to speak to the
you'll see that this
watch.
is immediately synced across.
That's a really key feature of any wearable is
You bet.
you just can't have too much information on the screen, so the digital assistant really can be useful there.
A little later on, as Jeff is arriving at the office, his watch vibrates again with a chat message from one of the team. He can see who it's from and what he's saying, all without having to fumble around and get out his phone. Your watch and your phone stay in sync. When you swipe away a notification on the watch, it disappears from the phone, as Jeff is showing now.
So now they're showing both the phone and the watch, and you see instantaneously that the notification goes away on the phone.
Convenient.
That makes
And
sense.
apps will stay in sync too. While Jeff is making his lunch, he finds it really hard to get the last peanut butter out of the jar. And he comes up with an idea, possibly a very brilliant one, that he wants to remember.
Google Keep, their
Take a
note-taking
note, double-sided peanut butter jar.
app on the phone. You can
Now
dictate
watch
to
his
it.
phone. We'll try that one more time.
Oops.
Take a note, double-sided peanut butter jar.
I guess the universe doesn't want there to be a double-sided peanut butter jar after all.
The demo gods are not with them today.
Not today. But kudos to them for trying a live demo.
So moving along, that note would have been saved immediately to his phone, and he can get on with his lunch. In the evening, Jeff is having dinner with a friend at a restaurant. If he's unfamiliar with one of the ingredients on the menu, he can just say,
What is Limburger?
Notice
so it looks like Limburger is a type of cheese.
he didn't say, okay,
Jeff
Google.
is lactose intolerant, so he better order something different.
He must
or
be
this dinner
touching
could go
something.
wrong. And when Jeff receives a phone call, his watch will vibrate, and he can see who's calling at a glance. It's another one of Jeff's coworkers. Now, Jeff could get out his phone to answer, but since he's busy, he can either swipe to reject the call from his wrist.
There's a red dot on the left, a green dot on the right.
Quick SMS replies.
Swiping up gives him some
sends the
choices
SMS,
of texts
he's
he
done.
can send in response. That's good. By the way, Limburger, stay away, Jeff.
Sometimes you're enjoying dinner so much that you want to avoid any more interruptions. And for that, you can set Do Not Disturb with a single downward swipe from the top of the screen.
Nice.
And now Jeff's watch won't buzz again until he wants it to. Later that night, Jeff arrives home.
Does that turn off the
Oh,
phone
that's
too, or
right.
just
Your
the
package
watch?
is here. Now that he's at home, the reminder that Jeff created
All right.
this morning has
This is
triggered.
that contextual awareness, knowing where you
You can
are.
also use Android wearables to control other devices around you. Let's loosen up with a bit of music.
It's not clear how much of that the
Play
phone
some
is
music.
doing. Maybe he's
Now
double
you see
tapping
Jeff
the
has
screen
music controls on
to
his
activate the
watch.
voice.
He can see what song is playing, he can pause the music or skip to the next track. And while it's playing, the album art is beautifully
You're watching our
displayed
live coverage of Google's Keynote at Google I/O in San Francisco. Parmy Olson joining
Finally,
us from
at the
Forbes
end of the
Magazine.
day, it's
Kevin
time for
Marks.
bed.
I'm Leo Laporte.
Set an alarm for
Mike
7
Elgin
a.m.
is not taking the day off, but is in fact in the audience and will be joining us later
With
today.
glanceable notifications and quick voice actions, Android Wear gives you what you need right when you need it. Let's take a closer look at some of the contextual information that Android Wear provides when you're traveling. So Jeff's about to leave on that big trip to the World Cup. It's the morning of his flight, so his phone is already displaying relevant information for his trip.
This is all something that we
see his
saw
flight
in the
status,
Android Wear
and even
video
boarding
some months
pass.
ago.
His hotel address will be there when he needs it.
So no
And
big
he knows
surprises
whether or
here
not he'll
so
need
far.
to pack an umbrella. It does look like
There
it's
will be
going to
some big
rain in
questions,
Brazil
how
on
much the
Friday.
watch costs, what kind of
Once he's
battery
in
life it
Brazil,
gets.
Android Wear continues
This is
Whether-
really
to give him useful,
a pitch to
timely
hardware
information
makers
at a
too.
glance.
The barrier to entry
it's
to
his
make a
restaurant
wearable
reservation,
device, to make a
the
smartwatch.
time back at home,
I mean,
so he knows where to call his family,
the processors
or
and
the
the
local
bits
bus
inside it
terminal.
are relatively
And while
inexpensive
he's
compared to something
walking
like a
around the city,
Right.
smartphone.
Jeff can see how many
So there are a
steps
lot of
he's
startups
taken
out there
today,
that could just
along with a
use
step
Android
by
Wear
history for
and
the week.
innovate on top of
Devices
that.
support it, he can
Well,
even
that's
check
one
his
question.
heart
Of course,
rate
the
after a
Samsung watches require Samsung devices. I don't know if the LG watch will require an LG device, but I would guess that they will do that.
So we've
Moto
shown you
X
what
or Moto
Android Wear
360
can do
require
out
a
of the
Moto
box.
phone.
Well, that's the big
Even
question.
more
You know,
exciting
Yeah.
as
to see
these
what
things move
developers build
towards
on top of
becoming
this
independent devices, which they're not yet,
The
they
Android
need to
Wear
be tied to a
SDK
phone.
Enables you to build glanceable, contextual apps for this new category of device. Let's talk through the capabilities.
Just one
it gives to
advantage Pebble
developers,
has
and then we'll show some
is that
examples.
it's
Right.
platform agnostic.
It's
Right off the bat.
cross-platform.
Right.
Well, we
Android
heard the
Wear automatically
Microsoft
brings
smartwatch
notifications from your
will be
Android phone or
cross-platform
tablet
when that
directly
comes
to
out.
your
That's
That would
what
make
they're
sense.
working
That's
on.
what Microsoft seems to be
Android
doing these
notification
days, is
already allow
being
you
open to other
to build
platforms, which is a
beautiful
big
user
change.
interfaces.
They have to be.
Yeah,
They don't
they
have
don't have a
much to
choice.
share
Yeah.
anymore. So.
Yeah.
And there are hundreds of thousands of apps delivering billions of these notifications every day. And now they're available on your wrist. Back in March, we released a developer preview, enabling apps running on the phone to add things like voice replies, have several pages, and group notifications in bundles. With these additions, you can begin to provide a tailored experience for wearables. And we've used these features to add Wear support to Google apps like Hangouts and Gmail, and there's been a huge response from developers. The very best wearable apps respond to the user's context, put glanceable cards in the stream, and allow the user to take direct action in just a few seconds. Here's one of my favorite examples. With Pinterest, you can follow other people's pins.
We're listening to
Pinterest
David
apps
Singleton,
will let you know
Director of
when you're near
Engineering
a
for
place
Android.
that's
He's talking
been
about
pinned by
Android
someone you
Wear.
follow. So Jeff's friend Susie loves Korean barbecue, and she's somewhat of an authority on the best restaurants in San Francisco. So when Jeff is in the city, Pinterest can notify him that he's near one of Susie's pinned restaurants. The notification will appear on his wrist just like
Wow.
this, and it uses pages, allowing him to quickly glance at the details, then swipe to see a map. And if he likes it, he can start navigation.
It's kind of what
from his wrist.
Foursquare wanted to do, or wants to do.
This is using Google Maps for mobile, which gives you turn-by-turn directions on your watch. It's particularly useful when you're walking, and it works with all Android Wear devices. In addition to what's possible with notifications bridged from the phone, today we're making a full Android Wear SDK available, which enables you to write code.
Developers happy again to get the SDK today, including custom UIs, control sensors, voice actions, the ability to speak to a phone.
Almost all the APIs that you're already familiar with on Android are available here. That means that you can present fully customized UI, read sensors directly, and much, much more. We're also introducing a new set of APIs in Google Play Services that makes it easy for your app to send data between a phone or tablet and a wearable. And we've road tested these APIs with some developers
Phone
over
or
the past few
tablet,
weeks.
that's interesting.
Let's take a look at examples of what they built. Eat24 is an app that makes food ordering both fun and easy.
It's kind of intriguing if you didn't need a phone,
Hopefully I'm
if you could use a tablet for this.
When it comes to
One of the reasons people don't carry tablets around is because it's not something you pull out of your pocket easily.
For notifications,
Right, but keep it in your purse and you've got your watch, you may...
I can almost imagine if smartwatches get good enough, kind of edge out the need for a smartphone, so all you really need is a smartwatch and a tablet. You might be able to get away with that.
Right.
And here I'm presented with a beautiful
They have a little ring that just buzzes and has a light on it, so that whenever a notification comes in, your ring will buzz, and then you can know to get your tablet out of
The
your
watch becomes the phone, the ring becomes the notification
Just one more tap to pay, and the pizza's on its way.
Wow, you can order pizza directly from your watch. Now that is a breakthrough.
That's a game changer right there.
Game changer.
I think that clocked in under 20 seconds. Now, you might be wondering how this app got to my watch.
I have to have pizza, and
Well,
I'm
all I
too
had
lazy
to
to pull my phone out of my pocket.
phone out of my
On the
pocket.
Play Store on my phone.
Hey, we've all been there.
When
Yeah.
the watch is
I
connected,
can't move.
the wearable portion of the app is automatically
I
installed.
am so wasted.
Kept up to
I
date
think all the
on that
developers
watch.
in this hours-long conference are feeling that way.
You know that feeling. I wish I could order pizza right now.
I mentioned the new wearable APIs.
I really
for
like
easy
these circular
communication between
screens.
phone and watch.
I hope these are available soon.
All the Cooks is a
Kind of
social recipes
where
app.
this is
which has
what
made
watches have
really
always
great use of
been.
the
Right.
APIs.
Circular, it's kind of
I
their
don't know
in their
about you, but
DNA.
I find it really hard to follow recipes, especially when it gets to those tricky bits.
Now, I'm
where
not going to
everything's happening
cook
at
by
the same
looking at
time.
my watch. Is that what
So
he's...
wouldn't it be more convenient if I could just look down at my watch
Oh,
and see
man.
what to do next?
Oh, he wants you
With the All the
to.
Cooks app, I can choose a recipe.
Oh, Lord.
Let's go into my favorites and choose this beef brisket chili. The recipe will immediately appear on my watch, so it's always right there with me. Let's get started. I've got all the ingredients, so let's start following the steps. Now, watch the phone carefully. As I move from step to step, the phone stays in sync too.
Drew Allenoff says there's going to be a special Google Flav that you can wear around your
Whether or
neck.
not it's safe to wear your watch while cooking.
You just got to be careful when you're actually holding the frying pan with the food in it and then turning to look at your wrist.
I'm not going to do this.
Disaster waiting to happen.
I have tried to cook using a recipe on my smartphone, and it's
with all
not
the
a
Cooks,
pleasant
whenever
experience.
A recipe
No.
calls for a timer, like this 4 hours in the oven, I can do that right away.
But now,
on my
okay, timer is built in.
wrist. So no more burnt dinner. We saw some great examples of voice
Harry
actions
McCracken
earlier
is
today.
tweeting, if you have an Android Wear
We believe
watch
voice
and you install an app
actions
with a
will be
wearable
most
component on your
useful
phone,
when
it
they
will
can invoke the
automatically
best
be
service
installed on the
in any
watch.
app. We're just getting started with this, but we're making voice available for some key actions on the wearable today, and we'll be adding more over the coming months. Lyft is a transportation service and
Paul
ride-sharing
Thurrott says,
app.
tweets, anyone who uses a watch to figure out what they want to eat that day has bigger problems than even Google can
Lyft have
solve.
implemented our call a car intent. So it's really easy to just walk outside and say,
Mike Elgin
"Okay,
tweets,
Google,
nobody's going to want rectangular
car."
Android Wear watches. Nobody. We go to Twitter for
You
our
see that
snark.
Lyft is able to determine Jeff's exact location from his phone and presents this confirmation screen.
A
so
little
he can
Lyft
verify
request.
his
Actually,
address.
Lyft and Uber
The app
seem
has
like
also
good
made
apps for
great
this.
use of notifications in the stream.
I wonder why they're not
You can
using
see when your car has arrived.
Uber as a demonstration.
Uber.
Even rate your
That's what I'm going to call it from now on.
Of course, Uber has a little bit of a connection with Google since the Google Maps. If you have the Uber app installed on your phone, Google Maps will automatically show Uber in the maps, how to get there via Uber.
Now, we showed a preview of a couple of watches we were working on with our partners back in March.
All right, here we're going to see some watches. Let's see.
The LG G Watch will be available to order later today on the Play Store.
Order the LG G today. For how much? And when will it arrive?
In addition, you might have caught a glimpse of a new device during the demos. We're very happy that Samsung is joining the Android Wear family with the Samsung Gear Live.
The Gear Live.
This is, you know, the other Gear watches use Tizen, so this is Samsung hedging its bets. Also pre-ordered today. I think the Play Store is going to be busy today.
Is the first watch to adopt the round
This is the one I want.
UI, and it will be available for sale later this summer.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm not alone, I think.
There are many more on the way, and we're thrilled to enable developers across the world to build apps for what we believe
seems like, given that they've just released the full SDK today, it might be prudent to wait and get a watch later.
Tell you about how we're bringing Android to the car.
Well, or at least get one that you know they can upgrade.
Upgradable, yeah. Now, Patrick Brady, Director of Engineering at Android, takes the stage. Let's see what he's wearing.
Android Wear.
Every speaker so far has been wearing a smartwatch.
By connecting your Android smartphone to a wearable device. And the result is truly amazing. Wouldn't it be great if all of your devices were this connected? For many of us, cars are an integral and essential part of life. They bring us to the grocery store and take us on weekend trips.
By the way, somebody pointed out, and I think this is true, the fact that you can pre-order the watches but not get one today means that attendees will probably not be receiving a watch under their seats.
In many ways, our cars keep us connected to the physical world around us, but they remain disconnected from our other devices and our digital lives. So what have drivers done to bridge this divide? Well, even though it's unsafe and in many cases illegal, people use their phones while driving. And reports show that 25% of accidents in the US are caused by people fumbling with gadgets behind the wheel.
This is smart of
There's gotta be a
Google
better
to
way.
address this distracted driving issue.
Back in January, we announced the Open Automotive Alliance to address this problem and make the connected car a reality.
Be proactive before the legislatures ban it.
Working on. And today, we're happy to announce Android Auto.
This is new, Android Auto.
There was some talk about they're doing something related to connected cars.
We've redesigned the Android
Apple, of course, has CarPlay.
Making it easier.
Google also owns Waze. I don't know if there's going to be any connection.
Boy, that would be nice. I'd love to have Waze.
We looked at what people do with their phones in the car today, and these things stood out to us.
Speaking of distracted driving, using Waze while you drive is extremely distracting.
Music and other forms of streaming media.
And telling you when you've got a red light camera.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go hunting through a grid of icons.
And
to find
incentivizing
apps that are
you
most
to
important to you when you're in the car.
Put, you know, notifications
Android
about
Auto
police
is
and cameras
contextually aware.
while you're
Give you
driving.
the right information right when you need it. And most importantly, Android Auto is completely voice enabled, so that you can keep your hands
So this
on
looks
the
like
wheel.
a car mode on the phone, which most Android phones do have.
We really wanted to drive a car up here on stage and show you this live in action.
So we did.
But apparently there are these regulations and logistics that make driving a vehicle in a room packed with 6,000 people
Why don't you drop it on the roof?
a very hard thing to do. So we set one of our engineers on the problem.
Uh-oh.
And apparently this is what happens when
looks
engineers
like-
have access to a blowtorch.
Looks like they've cut a car up, and they're going to bring just
We're
the
down
dashboard
one
in.
test car, but we have a great demo cockpit to show you.
Oh, Lord.
And now I'm happy to introduce Andy Brenner, our product manager.
And there he
who
is.
will
He's
literally
sitting in a
drive this
car.
demo.
Oh, this is like what they do at CES,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, this is nothing special.
So to start, Andy connects his Android phone to the car.
So he's using a USB
And the
cable
phone
to do
casts
that.
the Android Auto experience to the car's screen.
Now, this is like CarPlay. In fact, almost all the phone solutions
Andy can now put his phone
designed for
down
cars, they cast it onto the screen. They don't, in fact.
Right. You heard of MirrorLink? They do the same thing.
and touch screens to control Android Auto.
This is smart, though, because you're never going to be able to keep the car electronics up to date, so use the phone.
Right.
Are running on Andy's phone.
With working with car manufacturers to update software is a nightmare.
Horrible.
or gets a newer, faster
But
phone.
it does require a physical connection,
This also means
apparently.
that Andy has a personalized experience. That
I
he
guess
can bring
Bluetooth's
with
just
him
not
to
fast
any
enough to
Well,
cast.
yeah, it would be better if you didn't have to plug it in, but
Andy sees
not there yet.
is the overview screen, which shows personal and contextually relevant destinations, reminders, contacts.
But what it really is doing is merely
Google
casting
Now,
the
and
phone
other
screen up onto the
One tap,
car
and he's
screen. Because you
navigating
see battery,
to his
you see...
favorite road trip mix.
Right. It's kind of like
And
what
when he
was
plays
happening
some
on the
music-
watch.
Right,
You know, as it moves on the watch, it moves on the phone.
right.
Oh, he's driving.
Chat room tells us that is a 2014 Kia Soul he's not driving.
Let's look for a second at Play Music. It has been adapted to have simple, glanceable controls for the car. Andy has access to all the
Effectively, this is
curated
putting a
playlists,
Chromecast in a
radio
car.
Why are those
stations,
buttons so
albums, and
small?
artists,
Yeah, but they
and
need
all the
bigger
key
buttons.
features in Google Play Music.
I mean, obviously the hot area is a
You
bit
can
bigger,
also
but it's a bit
use voice
silly.
or the steering wheel controls
Small
to
touch
control
targets
the
are the
music in
bane,
the car,
frankly, of
keeping
all of
his
these
hands on the
devices.
wheel.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And then they've got the
course,
Apple thing of where we can't be
Android
bothered to
Auto
draw
needs
a ring
great
around the
maps
button to
and
show where the hot
navigation.
area is, which is
Right.
really
So
annoying.
let's show you Google Maps. We all love Google Maps because it's fast, accurate, updated, and it seems to know where everything is. In Android Auto, drivers have access to all of their favorite Maps features. Great local
Essentially,
search,
this is an
personalized
in-car, you know,
suggestions,
telematics
It's
system,
really the wrong shape.
but it's driven by the phone.
And Google Maps for Android Auto is even
Why,
more
why not just
powerful.
like use Google Now for this kind of thing? Rather
Well, it
than,
looks very now-ish.
Well, this is, I mean, basically what I do in my car is put the Nexus 7 on top
Right.
of the dash screen and
Yeah, people use a
wedge
suction
wedge
cup.
it in there.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
you're lucky that your Nexus 7 fits that.
The Young
You
Museum
can
is
just
open
duct
from
tape it on.
9:30 a.m. to 5:15 p.m. on Wednesday.
Good, I can go there.
F and Dunn in our chat room points out it doesn't look like the
Navigate
battery
there.
is being charged by this connection. That, I think, they'll
Navigating to the
fix.
Young Museum.
this is the problem with Apple. If you ask Siri to direct you somewhere, it's going to use Apple Maps, but not everybody wants to use Apple
Right,
Maps.
right.
So Andy was able to start navigation without ever entering an address or taking his hands off the steering wheel.
Well, and the other issue
During
is,
navigation,
do we need
instructions are
a 3G or 4G connection to make this work?
displayed on the screen and a material card that
This is,
floats
you
above
know,
the map.
Yeah.
Great. So that's music and navigation. What's next? Let's show you voice-enabled messaging.
Do you have to do that store the maps locally trick?
New message
Right.
from Hiroshi Lockheimer.
Maybe they'll make that
Here
easier.
it is. Andy, are we there yet?
Aha. Oh, make
As
me
you
turn
can
this
see,
Kia Soul
incoming messages show up as heads-up
Sona Park
so
Kia
Andy
Soul
can still
around.
see the upcoming turn in Maps. When he's ready, he can just use the steering wheel voice button to reply.
So that menu at the top and bottom is so big that they've cropped out the map to be almost useless.
What's the message?
Well, you can't have it both ways, Kevin. You have to have either have big buttons or...
If you've got like a 16 by 9 screen, put the buttons down the side, not top and bottom.
Yeah,
What
well,
are they
that's a
thinking?
good point. Sure. You know, of course, all aspect ratios are different on car screens. You know, there's no,
Yeah,
you
but
can't
look
count on
at
it.
It's like that map is useless.
Right.
They probably had to conform some kind of regulatory standard about the buttons when you're driving.
Right.
There are weird rules about that, yeah.
You shouldn't, frankly, have to touch anything when you're driving. It should all be voice.
Controls and user interfaces. There is no central way to distribute your app or keep it updated. Wouldn't it be great if building an app for the car was just like building an app?
This isn't much different from CarPlay, and you know.
Well, we have good news for you. The road ahead is brighter, and today we're announcing the Android Auto SDK, so that you. We thought you'd like that. So that you can just focus on making great apps for the car. We're starting with a full set of APIs for audio and messaging applications. First, let's talk
Finally, I can send text
We
messages.
worked with a great set of developers on a pre-release version of the Android Auto SDK to develop some great audio streaming apps.
Joyride,
You
at Bat
listen to
Pandora,
music,
Umano,
internet radio,
Spotify, TuneIn,
news,
Pocket
sports,
Cast, Songs,
and
Stitcher,
podcasts on the go. You can
iHeartRadio.
try these apps out live in our demo cars right outside.
These are also
Next,
Ford Sync
let's
partners
talk
in
about
many
messaging
cases.
apps. Andy showed us earlier how he can send text messages using Android Auto completely with his voice. Well, we're opening this up to your messaging apps. So using these APIs, your apps can notify users of incoming messages and allow them to respond using voice. And this is the same API we're using for notifications.
Good news and bad news. All developers are getting a brand new car. The bad news is it's a Kia Soul.
With just a few lines of code, you can let users know on their wrist or in their car. It's really, really powerful. So we're really excited about Android Auto, and we think we've found that better way. But I know what you're all thinking. When does the rubber actually meet the road? Well, we're happy to say that you won't have to wait long. The Android Auto SDK will be published soon, and the Android Auto experience will be available to users with the public L release later this year. And the excitement in the auto industry has really been growing.
That's the first...
Today, we're happy to announce that over 40 new partners have joined the Open Automotive Alliance.
First we've heard a date for L later this year. It's not much of a date, but...
And over 25 car brands have signed up to ship Android Auto in the near future. What's more, the first cars with Android Auto will be rolling off dealer lots before the end of this year.
And it sounds like 2015 cars, some will have.
That's just a peek at Android Auto.
Subaru,
An Android
Suzuki.
experience that's been redesigned for the car.
Kia.
You see Mercedes on there. They have that partnership with, early partnership with Nest on their SDK.
Audi's already announced that they're going to support Android. Let's see if I can find an image to see what...
Thanks, Patrick. It's pretty cool to see what you guys are doing at Autos, but some of us don't actually have a car in our living room, wheels or not. So I'm going to
Open Automotive Alliance, Bentley, Audi, Chevrolet,
so
Jeep,
TVs are fast becoming
Infiniti,
smarter and more
Acura,
connected. And really, they're becoming computing devices
Renault,
in their own right.
Subaru, Suzuki,
So we see a great
Volkswagen, Volvo,
opportunity to bring some of the strong capabilities of Android,
Mitsubishi.
such as voice input, user experience,
Pretty good
and
crowd. Ford is on that list, by the way.
in your house.
Fiat as
Now,
well.
in some ways, TV space is not too dissimilar to the mobile space in 2006. Each TV
All right, Android
manufacturer
TV
has
time.
a different OS with different APIs and programming model, often with limited developer tools. And the cost and friction to developer service to run across multiple TVs is too expensive. As a result, smart TVs are typically limited and not competitive with their mobile cousins. So we wanted to go and change that. Today, we're announcing Android TV. So this isn't a new platform. That's kind of the point. We're simply giving TV the same level of attention as phones and tablets have traditionally enjoyed. We want you to be able to leverage your existing skills and investment in Android and extend them to TV. There's now one Android SDK for all form factors. Now, remotes are a core part of the TV experience, and Android TV requires just a D-pad with voice input. And that can be made available as a hardware remote control, as a game controller, or even a virtual controller on a phone or tablet. So today, I'm going to use the Android TV app on my phone. And the best way to understand Android TV is to just see it in action. So what you're about to see is hot off the press, and really just an early look at the TV support that we're adding to the L developer preview. OK, so let's start with the most integral part of television, live TV.
It's not been in this group platform for 10 years.
We've added what we call the TV input framework to Android. So it enables Android-based TVs to handle video from sources such as HDMI, TV tuners, and IPTV receivers. And the UI provides a unified view of your channels in a familiar channel hopping UI with the channel information on the top. Now, if you want to do something different, just like every other Android device, you press Home. And you'll notice that Home overlays on top of the content, so I can keep watching while I browse. But unlike phones and tablets, where the behavior is more task-based, we designed Home to be a super simple lean-back experience. Because TVs, unlike computers or mobile devices, they're primarily entertainment interfaces. Users don't expect or want complexity from their TV. So the launcher presents you with a set of content recommendations at the top, floating over the UI using that familiar material theme. As I scroll down, you get immediate access to your applications, ordered by how often you use them. Scroll down again, you get access to your apps, also ordered by usage
Is this
order.
on the phone or the
Now, if I scroll back
TV?
up to the content recommendations,
This is the phone.
You can see this is a
the
quick way
TV.
for me to watch.
So this
the
would
film.
be something built into my
Recommendation
TV.
system's completely open.
He's just using the phone's remote.
And it's ranked according to your usage patterns.
Or, I mean, what's
So,
he
for
seeing on the
example,
phone? I
I'm
wonder if it's like a
currently
mirror
binge-watching
image.
Game of Thrones. I am actually. And I'll automatically be
Is it
presented with a
Cast,
recommendation
Chromecast,
for the
or
next episode.
I'm very confused.
It's not Chromecast.
So that's the home.
They couldn't
Let's
call it
talk about
Google
search.
TV because they already
Right.
launched
Today,
that.
people regularly
This
take
would be
out
their
their
third TV initiative.
Right.
Google TV, somewhat of a failure.
Fourth if you count the Nexus Q.
Nexus Q, which never was released. So you're right. This is their fourth TV
So, for
initiative.
example, I can just
Chromecast
simply
has been a
say
success. This looks like, in a way, an
It's made well on
extension.
Chromecast.
Yeah.
Breaking Bad.
Or replace Chromecast.
So he's using his phone to
Google
control
interpret
the
result,
television.
Get me a result for the popular
Voice
TV
search,
show.
which of course
Now,
Amazon
with one
Fire
click, I can
TV
then
made a lot
watch
of
it in Google Play Movies
hay
and
with.
TV or any other service.
The question is
that
there
I
a
have
set-top
installed.
box to go
If I
with
scroll
this,
down,
or?
You'll see information.
Yeah,
on
how do
cast
they do
members.
this? Is this
Scroll
in the
down again,
television?
I
Is
get
it a
the
set-top
latest search
box?
Yeah,
terms.
he hasn't made that
Also
clear yet.
YouTube clips at the bottom.
I'm
My
presumably-
suspicion is they
I can
don't
click
have
on cast
partners
members. So,
yet,
for
and
example, I can click on Anna
this is
Gunn.
going to be.
I'll get that nice material transition. I'll get information on the actress.
This is like
Scroll down,
Amazon's
I can get
X-ray feature,
movies and
which
TV,
gives you
shows that
information
she
about
starred in,
the
even,
performers
YouTube clips of interviews
on
with the
top of the
actress.
show.
Now, the power of Google comes into its own for more abstract queries. So, for example,
Knowledge
I can just say Oscar-nominated movies from 2002.
And now the power of
Google will
Google.
interpret that query and, of course, get me all my Oscar.
It's called a
nominated movies.
search.
Yeah, but how?
How?
When you
We don't
click
know
play,
how.
what happens?
Well, I have to say the search only showed a result in the Play Store. We know that Breaking Bad is on Netflix and other places. So the fact that it only showed the Play Store, to me, is a non-starter. It's only going to show what I can get in Google.
Was let you search across all the things you had, but that was also why they hated it.
Right.
Commoditized the media.
Right.
And again, you know, I get movies and TV shows she's involved in, other related queries and YouTube
That
clips.
was a terrible bio,
So
wasn't it?
that's Google search
Right.
tailored for your TV. Let's now take a look at some of the applications. So let me launch Google Play Movies and TV first. Now, developing for
It's
TV
exactly the
means
same.
creating a 10-foot user experience, so-called because that's typically how far you're standing from or sitting from the screen. In L, we've expanded the platform to support a lean-back experience with new framework classes.
Paul Thurrott says the developers applauded Jennifer Lawrence, not the feature. I think he's probably
Our
right.
Play Movies team was able to take their existing tablet app for Android, quickly add the lean-back classes on top of it to produce.
So this is a
great TV
lean-back
experience.
interface
They
to
now have the
Google
same
Play.
APK for TV, phones, and
But the
tablets.
point is that it's
So what you see here is the browse.
an extension of the
fragment,
Android SDK, so you can just make your Android app run on this.
Right.
So if you, but they said to the tablet one, so you already have to have done the thing where you have the multiple layouts so that you have a tablet version and a
There'll be a third version, a 10-foot version.
If you don't have your remote handy, you can always use your Android Wear Watch as a D-pad. So, for example, let's try this out. So we've created
The
a little
Gear
wearable app.
2 does this. It allows you
So
to
from here, I
use
can actually
Samsung's
I can
Watch On
interact with the TV.
app to control
so I
the
can go
TV.
back. Let's go up and watch. Now you see me. I think that'd be a good.
Well, this
show.
is basically what Samsung's been trying to do with developers as well, get them to port their apps to the Samsung Smart TV.
And Samsung has the advantage of actually making TVs.
Right.
Google is not in the TV business yet.
Okay, so that's not loading. That's fine. Okay, so let's move on. So to wrap up,
Oh, dear.
Too many people
all
on the
of these
Wi-Fi.
lean-back building blocks are ready for you to reuse and customize in your own applications as you see fit. Okay, so next, let's talk about games. People who have traditionally not thought of themselves
You're
as
watching a
gamers
special
frequently download and
edition of
play games
TNT
on their phones
covering
and tablets.
live coverage of the Google I.O. Keynote 2014. Parmy Olson from Forbes with us, Kevin Marks, and we're currently finding out about Android TV.
in your house. And the games are getting really good. So for example, let me fire up one of my favorites, which is Leo's Fortune.
It is one of my favorites as well.
This is a really good.
It's actually a great 3D game.
Modern Android game. It's got great gameplay. It's got great graphics, fast and fluid.
It's also on
Because
iOS.
our lead UX designer's name is Leo. He's not quite as cuddly as this guy, but I could definitely see him with a handlebar mustache. Anyway, so another advantage of Android TV is you can tap into Google Play games to share achievements and leaderboards with friends. You can even play multiplayer games with your friends, playing from any device. So for example, I can launch NBA Jam, which is a really great game and play a multiplayer game with my friend Alan here on the sofa. So let's try it out.
So he's holding a Samsung Galaxy tablet.
Let's try this. So we have a bet on
and playing the game
is me.
on his tablet.
Okay, first one to 2. Okay, let's go. So the first person to do has to buy the other person beer tonight. Let's go. Hopefully,
unfortunately, there we go. And
I don't really understand this game.
Dave is playing on the TV using a standard game controller.
Okay, what all? Did you get 2?
I'm not sure how they're doing this, though. They haven't, and I'm sure the audience is equally confused. They haven't described how the technology works.
Oh, yeah. All right. It's a good thing there's a free bar at the after party, Alan. Okay. I hope. Okay, so that's games. Now, sometimes you just want to cast or send content from your movie, such as movies or music from your phone. So Android TV includes full Google Cast support. So you can use it just like a Chromecast.
So,
in fact, Android TV enables us to bring Google Cast to more TVs. So, for example,
Chromecast is now called Google Cast, apparently.
Favorite jam with me.
He said
he can just
use it just like Chromecast.
Just like Chromecast.
It directly to my TV.
So.
All right, so he's going to cast it.
Hopefully his music will appear. I'm always really nervous about what he's actually going to play, so I'm not sure you even want to see this. Okay, that's pretty innocuous. That's cool. All right, works great. So that's Cast. Now, to distribute your applications, we've designed a very TV-centric Play Store experience. I'll just fire it up here. And the L Developer preview comes with a sneak peek of TV apps and games to showcase the platform. And you'll recognize big names like Netflix and TED, as well as some great casual...
It sounds like a lean-back SDK, a third screen size.
With some of the best content available today for Android, tailored, of course, for TV.
Using...
So that's a quick overview.
Does it require Chromecast or the cast capability built into the TV?
No, I think they haven't said what connects
built-in television, set-top boxes, so they don't actually have an implementation. They're expecting others to develop this.
Marvell to Intel and more.
All right.
Today, I'm super excited to announce that the entire 2015 HD and 4K smart TV ranges from Sony and the 2015 ranges of Sharp and TP Vision's Philips will run on Android TV.
So this is going to be a built-in on Sony and Sharp TVs and TP Vision Philips TVs.
They're 4K TVs, he said.
We're also seeing activity in the pay TV space with Wii
and not Samsung,
and that's
course.
This fall, and of course not Samsung.
And we'll also be seeing streaming boxes powered by Razer, Asus, and others launching this fall. And the Unreal Engine demo that I showed you earlier, that was running on Android TV with NVIDIA's TK1 reference design capable of console-style gaming. And we expect to see TV products based on that hardware in the fall.
So there's an NVIDIA chipset that TV manufacturers can use.
We're making a development kit we call ADT1, available through a sign-up page to application developers like yourselves, so you can start developing for TV today. In fact, all the demos you saw were running on ADT1. So to learn more about Android TV, you can visit developer.android.com/TV.
So to make this...
And I mentioned earlier that Google Cast is a core part of
It's not a set-top box.
Here's the key.
As Cast gets better, so does Android TV. So to learn more about some of the exciting new developments in Google Cast and Chromecast, let me hand over to Rishi.
I think we'll learn more, but so this sounds like an SDK that is part of L that developers can use today to build a lean-back experience into their app and then cast it to a castable device, which could be a TV. But the key here is, will this work with Chromecast?
Your phone, your tablet, and your laptop. And for the first time, you had an experience that just worked. All it took
this would be a big deal if it works with Chromecast.
And we've been really happy about the positive reaction we've gotten from both press and consumers. We've sold millions of devices and consistently outsell all other streaming devices combined in major retail channels like Best Buy.
Chromecast is a $35 HDMI plug-in.
Recently, we've been able to replicate that success.
It works with any TV.
In 18 countries. Today, Chromecast is a top-selling electronics device on Amazon in the US, UK, France, Japan, and Canada.
One advantage Google has over Amazon is
and as sales have ramped up,
they're international. They're selling this stuff worldwide.
40%. Already, YouTube sees more active engagement on Chromecast than any other TV streaming product. The model is working.
If you're watching YouTube on a big screen,
is just the beginning.
probably
We wanna
watching it
build
on a
an ecosystem
Chromecast.
of Google Cast Ready apps and Google Cast Ready devices. So that's why we're excited that Google Cast supports coming to Android TV devices as devices.
So it looks like the Chromecast will be a Google Cast Ready device. That's a big deal.
With 5 content apps. And since then, we've brought on board many of the top content apps from around the world, including the BBC iPlayer and the Watch ESPN app, which came just in time for the World Cup to kill all productivity of the Chromecast team. Luckily, we have a Brazilian VP.
Doesn't make a lot of sense because you need to have an ESPN cable subscription to use Watch ESPN. So,
in fact, in the last
presumably
30
you've got your cable hooked up.
50% of Chromecasts
Guess if you didn't,
were used by devices from multiple platforms. That's why in February we launched the Google Cast SDK across Android, iOS, and Chrome. So now any developer can take their existing mobile or web app and extend it right to the TV.
I'm not clear how this is different from what they've been doing.
Actively building over 10,000 Google Cast apps. So we're starting to see a lot.
So Google Cast, which is that little button that you see on YouTube and Netflix,
integrating with the SDK, we want to make it
is not
easier
new.
for consumers to
framework
find your Google Cast Ready
for
app.
Android TV.
So today we're announcing new
Allow apps
discovery
to talk to one another, or
experiences on Android, iOS, and Chrome. Consumers can find these at chromecast.com/apps or from the Chromecast app on your phone, tablet, or laptop.
I guess what this does is just encourages developers to create a lean-back experience that could be cast. Because right now the UI is on the phone or the device.
The Chromecast is a web page. It's not an app.
Use their own devices.
What you do for Chromecast is you make a web page that just prints on the Chromecast device.
Right. So now it sounds like what they're doing is extend. I'm unclear. We'll listen and see.
Yeah. Let me just talk over it.
Did I?
So I have AK here on stage with me, and let's say AK is over at my house, and he wants to use his phone to share or cast one of his favorite YouTube videos to my TV. Now, normally I need to share my Wi-Fi password with him, but sometimes they're long and complicated, or I don't remember it. In this case, I just don't trust him with the password.
He says you can use Chromecast without being on the same
Wi-Fi. But I still wanted to see his great video. Well, with this new feature, AK can still take out his phone and open up the YouTube app. And you'll see in the top right, he's only connected to the cellular network, but you still see the cast button. Simply press the button, and we'll allow him to connect to nearby devices. Now, in a few seconds, his phone will connect to Chromecast through the cloud.
That's nice.
And that's it. So now he can
it's adding
control
cloud
the video,
connections
pause
to
the video, play the video, just as if he was on my same Wi-Fi network.
That's probably something that...
So how do we do it? We're using a variety of different technologies, which allows us to authenticate users in the same room as a Chromecast. And if for whatever reason we can't automatically detect or authenticate for you, we'll ask for a PIN that will always be present on the screen. Oh, check this part out. This is my favorite part of the video.
So the big difference right now is you don't get a user interface on the big screen. You get the play, the output. The UI is on the phone. And as you say, it's a web page. It sounds like you'll with
which is the classic Chromecast API.
Right.
UI.
Now they're going to extend it to allow you to put a lean back UI on the screen as well.
We'll be rolling this out to all Android users later this year, and developers will get this for free via the Google Cast SDK.
There will be a pin so
we
you can
also spend a lot of time
keep people from casting your TV on the curb.
Today, lots of people talk about the 5 hours per day people watch TV.
That could be fun.
Yeah.
What about the 19 hours per day your TV is just a blank, empty screen?
Yeah, what about that?
With Chromecast, we want to make use of this large, beautiful
It turns a giant slideshow of random photographs.
Really a feed of scenic images that's been gradually expanding over time.
Those are pretty nice, but I don't leave that on.
We're announcing the new Google Cast Ambient experience.
Oh.
And we call it Backdrop.
You could put now
it just takes
and
a
other
minute
things
to set
on
up,
there.
and you can do it from any iOS or Android device. In this case, we're going to use an iPhone 5 for the demo, and we have the feed accelerated just for the demo purposes. So
They're using an iPhone for this.
So let's go ahead and open up the Chromecast app, and you'll see Backdrop's a new option in the app drawer. And from here, you can personalize the feed to match your own interests.
Your photos, art, places, lifestyle,
One of the top
weather.
feature requests we've gotten is the ability to add your own personal photos
It's about
to
time.
the ambient feed. Well, now you can. So if we turn on photos,
This
you
is
can select
something that
from
Apple TV
one or
has
multiple
been doing for a few
Google
years.
But not weather. I mean, here's an opportunity for Google now to show up on my big screen TV along with my photos.
show up right on the TV screen.
That's interesting.
TV necessarily want that though.
Well, TVs use a lot of power. I'm not sure leaving them on 24/7 is a good idea.
What I'd like is a way to turn off the TV from the Chromecast. Because that's the bit you can't do. It's like, oh, I've turned it on.
Yeah.
I've got to
we also have a lot more
walk across the room and turn it off.
We want to give you an infinite source of great and beautiful images.
A TV could do that. If
one of my favorites is one called
if they
Places,
supported,
which brings geospatial images.
Well, they can turn it on. They can turn it off. There just isn't a UI for it.
Right.
These satellite photos give you a totally different perspective on how you can see the world. It's really amazing. Leave it on for a really long time.
Visual explorations of the Earth, places,
and Google Plus featured photos.
Entertainment, travel, home, arts, health, and others. News, weather, news.
From around the world.
Can I turn it all on, and what do I get?
The National Museum of Women in the Arts. And now my TV's a beautiful set of paintings.
This is
Every
nice.
topic is curated to make sure we're
wondering
showing
why they
high
didn't do this
quality
sooner. This is
and safe images.
Safe.
And every user has the ability to control
Can I get
which
unsafe
topics show
images?
up on the TV. Now, generally, I'm going to leave this
We
in the
left me
background
your
of my
photos.
house.
I want the thunder down under on my screen.
And I want to learn more, a little bit more info about it. I can use Google Voice Search to always learn more.
What's on my Chromecast?
Wow, that's neat. So you can look up the provenance
For
of a
every
painting.
topic, we'll show a synchronized card.
That's great.
We'll show a synchronized card that'll show you relevant information and relevant actions. So in this case, I can learn more about any artist of the painting. Backdrop brings your TV to life even when you're not actively using it. And we're looking forward to working with third parties, for third-party developers to actually bring in their own topics into the feed.
And how long before
Backdrop will roll out
ads
to
show
all
up in the
Chromecast
feed?
users
Asks Evil
later this
IRC.
summer. So finally, one of the big advantages of the Google Cast model is that we can start thinking beyond traditional use cases of the TV like video. For example, your phone and your tablet have unlimited possibilities, and there's many times we want to bring those experiences and extend them to the TV. Well, to help accelerate that shift, we're launching a new Google Cast feature that allows you to mirror any Android device to your television.
So in the past, Chromecast has been able to, as a beta, mirror any Chrome
So to
tab
start mirroring, just go
on
to
your
your Chromecast
desktop,
app
but
on
now
your
you
Android
can
device
mirror your Android device
and
to your Chrome.
select Cast Screen. And from here, everything on your phone will just show up on the TV. It's that simple. No cables or wires needed.
Looks
now,
pretty,
we built our own
pretty
protocol
fast as well.
to reduce latency and frame drops, so the experience feels really natural and smooth. And now you can share anything on the big screen. So let me give one example, a real-life example I had a few months ago.
Rotate the phone.
Using Google Earth.
Ah.
I was planning a family trip to Maui
Widescreen,
the other day,
yay.
and I want to show my 4-year-old daughter
Good old
where
landscape.
Maui is on the map. So instead of huddling on my small phone, I
like
opened up
this.
Google Earth and projected it right to the TV. So let's type in Molokini,
doesn't
one
seem
of my favorite
very
snorkeling
responsive.
destinations in Maui.
I imagine people would use this feature a lot.
And as you can see, it's a totally
Just a quicker
different
way to
experience
access
navigate
YouTube
the world with
videos.
my daughter.
Much
Cast it on the
yeah,
screen.
yeah, I love it.
No,
You can play with it
it's
for
like
hours.
Apple's had for the year. but-
That's right. This is
But it's
AirPlay,
good.
essentially, yeah.
We're actually going to open up the
There-
camera.
there's a sluggishness to AirPlay this doesn't seem to
In
have. I
live
don't know if
action,
they've
a
done
little
something
nervous.
special.
In live
But
action, all of you.
it looks like it's hardwired. So
No,
Wow.
no, that's for showing the right-hand screen.
okay.
The hardwire was to show this is
right.
on screen, and then the left-hand one is it's on TV.
All the people wearing Google Glass in the audience are kind of experiencing
That's very weird. Very weird Inception.
With many more devices coming soon. We'll be rolling out this initially in beta as devices get updated to the latest version of Google
So
Play services.
you need an HTC One M7, LG G2, G2 Pro, Nexus 4, 5, 7, or 10, a Note 3, S4, S5 to do this screencasting. That's odd.
And we look forward to innovating
So
all
it's
of you
hard.
to make that
There's
reality.
apparently some hardware
Now I'll
required.
pass it
Or
back.
is that all the ones they've shipped 4.4 for?
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just 4.4. No, because the M7. Maybe that's it.
Because 4.4 dropped last week.
Right.
Your car.
So Kosh has been working on exactly this with
Another important device
Allcast.
in our lives is our laptop. Our journey here began with Chromebooks. We are seeing tremendous momentum here. We started the journey with
So now on to
one
Chromebooks.
reference device,
They're covering the
CR40,
entire Googleverse
which
here.
we launched about 3 years ago. A year later, with Samsung and Asus, we launched 2 devices in 2 countries. Fast forward to today, we have 8 OEMs making 15 devices with many more on the way.
Recipients at
in
Google I/O
28
3 years ago
countries.
all got CR48s, the first Chromebooks. The
Users
black
really
boxes.
love the fundamental insight.
And then, last year or the year after that,
Speed, simplicity, and security.
Chrome boxes.
All 10
And
of
Qs.
the top 10 highest rated laptops today in Amazon are all Chromebooks. We are seeing tremendous traction in education as well. Just this year alone,
The Pixels were handed
number
out
of Chromebooks
last year,
sold
right?
to K through 12 schools in the United States has grown by 6x.
I think so.
And we are investing a lot more in this area. So let me talk about how we are evolving the Chromebook experience. As I said earlier,
One of our
users
chatters is
almost
asking,
always have a
what are the
smartphone,
odds that they
including when
mention
they're
G+?
using a Chromebook. So we want
My
to
thinking is they're not going to mention it at all.
At
all,
so
Yeah.
that they have a seamless experience across their devices. Let's take a look at what we can do. Dave Can is going to help me through with some demos. Dave talked earlier about how with the L release, you can unlock your phone knowing that it is with you based on what we are doing with APIs in L. Well, if you can unlock your phone, we can also unlock your Chromebook.
That would be nice. My
Every
Google
time you
password
approach
has
your
gotten so
Chromebook,
long and
when your
complex,
phone
it's
is with
a
you,
real pain to
we
log
will
into my Chromebook.
automatically unlock your Chromebook.
Thank you.
And sign you into your favorite applications
Thank you.
and services. So it works seamlessly.
Automatic login on Chromebooks from your
We have
smartphone.
already added Google Now notifications. So the
Is
same
that
Google
any
Now
Chromebook?
cards, which you see on your phone,
Well, he's
you
showing
see
a
them on your
Pixel, but
Chromebook.
No,
And
I'm
we're
just
adding
thinking,
a
it's
few
like,
more things.
could they put a
Say you
Chromebook
get
in the
an
lobby and any of
incoming
us can
phone
walk up with our phones and we can use it?
Ah, wouldn't that be nice? Log you in and have all your stuff
on
there.
your Chromebook.
Wouldn't that be
If you
nice?
get a text message,
I love it.
you
Google
will
Now
see those
notifications
text
showing
messages
up on the
your Chromebook
Chromebook.
as well. And I recently had this experience. My phone was in my pocket and running out of battery.
You're starting to see an interesting ecosystem surrounding the phone where you have a watch, a TV,
Simple,
a
delightful
laptop,
experiences to connect
and the phone is the hub.
and your Chromebook.
Right.
As we started working on this, one of the things that struck us is, wouldn't it be nice if you could get some of your favorite Android applications, which you love on your phone, on your Chromebook? So this is a
Of course,
difficult challenge.
many of us use
technically.
Pushbullet
So we've been
as a
working on this
third-party
project
Chrome
for a
extension to
while.
do this.
Our goal is to bring your favorite Android
Motorola users
applications
have
in a thoughtful manner
this
to
as well
Chromebooks.
on the Moto
We
X.
want this to be intuitive for users. These applications were built for Android, for the phone, so we want them to work when there is a mouse, keyboard, and touch events, etc. For developers, we want this to work with as little modifications as possible. So we are in early days, and we're going to show you a preview today, and Can is going to help me with it. So Can is going to pull his tablet up, and what you're seeing on his tablet is Evernote. This is one of his favorite applications, and I think he's planning a
Me too.
birthday party there. Let's switch over to the Chromebook, and the same Android application is now available in the launcher on your Chromebook. So you can click that, and you get
Without
the exact same
installing
application.
a Chrome extension.
And because you're on a Chromebook, you can start making changes to it. You can go to the web, copy,
don't-
paste. Everything just works. We have ported that Android application to run within your Chromebook. Let's give you one more example.
That's very interesting. And this is exactly what you were talking about, Parmy, the merging of Android and Chrome OS.
Like Wine.
But also,
We
they're
now have
opening in
that
Windows.
application
They're not taking over the
running
screen.
on a Chromebook Pixel as well.
Presumably, this requires that Vine or Evernote or the developer add some capability. It sounds like add some capability to the app so it can do this.
And intuitive on a Chromebook.
Not clear.
And because the app has access to some of the underlying device APIs, it has access to the camera API, can actually take a clip
Wow,
of
you could
himself,
shoot a
just like
Vine on the
Vine
Chromebook.
user, and post it straight from his Chromebook. The final application we want to show to you is Flipboard.
Cool.
It's a beautiful immersive experience.
And Flipboard has no
the
desktop
Android version of the
version.
app now comes alive on Chromebooks, and you can see how beautiful and immersive this experience
You need a touchscreen Chromebook.
We are
Not all
very,
Chromebooks
very
are touchscreen,
excited
are they,
about
Kevin? I think
favorite
No,
not.
not all of them. Only some of the new ones.
straight
But
on their Chromebooks.
but you
so that
don't
they can
necessarily
spend
because
even
you've
more
You
got
use a
got
mouse to
trackpad.
swipe,
Got a
or
trackpad,
trackpad,
working
yeah.
on bringing
So it's kind of moving towards the consumers
lose pinch
incentivized
and
to,
so that
sorry,
it works
I was going to say the
in
consumers incentivized to download apps on their phone. Then
Yes.
somehow they can access those services on all those other different devices,
Yes.
TV, watch,
So far, we have
laptop.
talked about bringing our platforms, Android and Chrome, to all the connected devices.
I would
in your
love to
life
see how this
so that we
works.
can create a great experience across
I'm
all.
sure there'll be a session on it.
But there is another important environment we want to talk to you about it as well. Most of you spend a lot of time in your workplace.
And by the way, if they do this on a Chromebook, how much longer before they do it on any Chrome browser, on any platform?
Same person at home.
Presumably they could. They could do it on Windows and Mac too.
In his spare time, he's a Lonely Planet.
They've been moving towards these Chrome apps, these standalone Chrome apps on both platforms.
Well, they already have Chrome Android emulators for both. So it's part of the SDK, so they could do that.
The PC world is, companies gave you a separate laptop for work and a laptop for your personal. You had your own personal laptop. The experience was
This makes the Chromebooks much more
that
desirable.
model starts breaking down when you start thinking about phones. No one wants to carry two phones around. So
You're watching breaking news coverage
with the L release in Android
of the Google
we're adding a
Keynote
full
at
set of
I.O.
APIs
today,
to unify this
part of an
experience.
extended tech news
So we're
today.
bringing
Leo Laporte with
both your
Kevin Marks and
experiences
Parmy Olson.
so that as a user, you can have one experience and both your personal applications and corporate applications can live on the same device.
They've been talking about this for some time, the idea of having a...
We are doing it
Finally
thoughtfully
merge your two
by
Gmails.
providing underlying data
Would
separation.
Jeff Jarvis be happy?
So all your personal data is isolated from your corporate stuff and vice versa. So we are providing full data isolation and security, which enterprises care about.
Essentially,
As developers, there is no modification.
it's
needed
kind of
to your
the
existing
mullet
apps.
of
All your
smartphones.
apps
You
will be
have
available through Google
business in
Play,
the front
and companies can
party
buy
in the
them in
back.
bulk and deploy it, so you can reach many more users. These are all available in L, but we are wrapping up many of these features as a separate app so that it will also work on prior versions of Android.
Interesting.
Finally,
Ice cream sandwich and
Samsung has done
above.
a lot of important work in this area with Knox. And we really want to thank
A little tip
Samsung
of the hat to
for contributing
Samsung.
all of
Samsung's
their work in Knox to the
security
Android
platform Knox.
so that we have one consistent story for enterprises across Android.
Very interesting. Samsung really is, which for a while looked like it was going to go separate ways, seems to be very much a part of this.
Well, Samsung is a do-everything company. They don't make a choice. They do both.
They can be agnostic. Dell, Huawei, HTC, HP, Lenovo, Samsung, Sony, Asus, Motorola, and LG.
By which we can bring
All
these devices
participating
to
in this
companies with guaranteed
Android at
updates
work.
and full security. So we are very excited by this journey. As we bring Android for work, one of the important use cases we care about is productivity. Documents collaboration, which is why we've invested a lot in
We are now
Google Docs and the whole
getting close to
suite of
2 hours in on this keynote.
We've always had great
If you're tuning in
mobile
for
apps
Windows
Google
Weekly,
Docs
it'll be
and
delayed
Sheets.
slightly by.
And today we are also announcing Google Slides so that you can create and share presentations.
But we will go
straight
to
from your
Windows
mobile
Weekly
devices.
as quickly as we can after the
One
keynote
of the
concludes.
common use cases we run into.
Special edition of Twig
in
coming up this afternoon.
people
Jeff
use
and
this
Gina
is they run into
are in the keynote right now, but
very
they'll be
common
driving up.
experience for all of us. And we want to make sure as we bring Android for work, Office files work seamlessly. So we acquired Quick Office, and we've been hard at work integrating Quick Office into Google Docs. And today we are announcing native Office editing built within the Google Docs suite of editors.
And then when they say Office, they mean Microsoft Office. They didn't want to say that.
Let's take a look. Ken is going to show how this works. I'm
Office
sure you're
themselves
all
have, don't they?
familiar
Got
with
Office
getting
365.
emails in which you get a Word file. And so if you get a Word file in your email,
Really interesting to watch him
click on it.
use these
In the past, we would convert it into
programs without mentioning Microsoft.
But we don't anymore. And so what you see
So you
is
can
a
actually
native
work
Word
within
file
Word.
handled straight within Google Docs. And this works for sheets and presentations as well. And
In Google
Ken can
Docs.
make edits to the document. And most importantly, when he saves it, it saves back as a Word file so that you can send it back to people. So it works seamlessly. You can always upconvert this to Google Docs so that you get
Up-convert it to Google Docs. I would say down-convert, but...
One of the common features we get requests on is redlining. So we have done great work to bring modern collaborative approach to redlining. And the feature is called suggested edits.
Tracking is a big
Just
part of
like
Microsoft's
Google Docs
Word.
always does.
ability to track and merge changes is something kind of lacking in Google Docs. It looks like they're supporting that.
Accept changes.
Well, but it's a requirement because you have so many versions, because you're sharing files around.
Right.
Whereas with Google Docs, you normally have one version, so it's a.
But you want to know, yeah, I guess. I mean, I think this is a very valuable tool in business.
Yeah, but they've always had a different.
You can always annotate a Google Doc, can't you? Yeah.
The interesting thing is how this is starting to look like Quip, which is actually very good at that.
Google Drive has over 190 million 30-day active users.
190 million Google Drive monthly active users. That seems low.
And the number has grown over 85% just last year alone.
Can you turn him up, please?
We are now bringing all of Google Drive for Work functionality to companies as well. And what we are doing is we are encrypting the data both during transit and at rest on our service. We are providing enterprises full APIs.
Parmy Olson has to go file this story for Forbes. So, Parmy, we thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Really interesting.
Really appreciate your commentary. Thank you so much. Parmy is at Parmy on Twitter and writes for Forbes online. And I guess you're going to go file your story right now.
Yep.
All right.
We got to be busy today.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Combination of Android for Work, our Google Docs suite, and Google Drive for
Kevin,
Work
can you stick around?
really offers a
Yeah,
comprehensive
hang on.
suite
I'm
for
interested in watching this anyway.
Yep.
and
Let's
joins
watch
Google
together.
Apps and Chromebooks. And as companies are thinking about moving away from traditional Windows architecture, we are seeing...
We also mentioned the two big stories today, besides Google I.O., come from the Supreme Court.
58%.
In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that Aereo did, in fact, violate network copyrights with its service.
Have gone Google.
Aereo says we will fight on, but I'm not sure how they plan to do it. They have said in the past that should the Supreme Court rule against them, that they would have to go out of business. Aereo's received $100 million in venture capital. That money, at this point, looks like it's gone. The second big decision, a good news decision for privacy rights advocates. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously that law enforcement needed a search warrant in most cases to look at the contents of your cell phone. We'll have more on that later.
Startups to students who act as developers and create amazing experiences on top of a platform.
Google Drive offering unlimited storage for $10 per user per month. This is really upped the ante in cloud storage. $10 per user per month. Drive for Work with unlimited storage. And you can encrypt Drive data on the server, which means Google doesn't have access to it, I presume.
I think everyone here is unique in so many ways. We have such a crazy hodgepodge of people here.
We understand so much about.
So this has become quite a shooting war now between Microsoft and Google, both offering cloud services. Apple kind of a laggard third in the race, but iCloud is getting smarter. As Google has pointed out, they have quite a few users, 190 million active users. But I think that I'll have to look it up, but I suspect that pales to the number of active Microsoft Office users. But then Microsoft's been in the game for a lot more.
Right. But it's also the comparison is with 365, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Cloud-based.
My views on education have always been influenced by where I come from, which is Guatemala. So Guatemala is
with 365 is kind of weird because if you actually use the apps, then you have to lock. Only one of you can edit at a time.
Right.
Whereas if you use the browser-based stuff, then you have simultaneous editing. So there is an awkwardness there, which is if you continue using the apps you've got, you have to remember, but you're saving them on 365, you have to remember to close your documents before anyone else can open them.
Right. It's always a problem, though, with shared documents.
But no, but the point is, if you got a server, Microsoft is stuck because those apps were never written with that in mind.
Right,
and
they're
so
desktop
they can't rewrite
apps.
to do that.
Yeah.
Desktop apps. Whereas the browser-based ones, they do have the concurrent editing stuff working.
Office is used, according to Microsoft, by over 1 billion people. So, but Office 365 probably is not used by many more than the 190 million that Google's claiming for Google.
I don't know if I've seen figures for that.
Yeah. I'm sure Paul Thurrott will tell us in Windows Weekly, which is coming up right after this coverage of the keynote. I feel like since we're watching an ad at this point, that it's probably likely that keynote's about to wrap up. We'll see if Larry Page makes a surprise appearance. He did last year, answered questions, talked about the Google Island.
But he may do that tomorrow. They've got another keynote tomorrow, haven't they?
You know, in the past, last year they did one big keynote announcing everything. In the past, they've done several. It'll be interesting to see what I don't. So they have scheduled another one tomorrow.
I'm not sure actually. I thought they had. Let me double check.
I was incredibly moved when I saw that video the first time, and even more excited. All the folks in the video.
It's been quite a keynote. Google announcing Android One, a low-cost phone for developing markets. They announced Android L, the next version of Android, with 5,000 new APIs available later this year. They talked about a new user interface, a new style, a new design. We knew this would be a Google I/O that was all about design. They also showed smartwatches, an LG G, a Samsung Gear, and a Moto 360. Talked about Android Wear. You can pre-order the LG and Samsung watches today. They didn't say when they'd be shipping the Motorola 360 later this summer, but Android Wear, a reality. Also Android Auto, Android TV, Google Cast, and Android for Work.
So we're going to talk about that next. The first is how you can build and scale your applications on top of Google Cloud Platform. We've been, within Google, building world-class
Now they're talking about cloud
infrastructure,
services for
running
developers.
large-scale services like Search, Maps, YouTube, and Gmail. And we are very excited. We are bringing the full power of the Google Cloud Platform to developers like you. To talk about that, I'm going to invite Urs Hotzley.
Thank you. Thank you, Sundar. Hi, everyone. I'm Urs Hotzley, and my team and I built the Google Cloud Platform.
If this starts to focus on developer-only stuff, we may break away. I'd like to cover the whole keynote, especially if Larry Page shows up. No mention so far of Google Plus.
And they keep their teams small, and they can focus on what they do best, because we run the rest of the infrastructure for them.
Well, and it's a competitive environment because Apple now is offering cloud services for developers as well. So Microsoft, Apple, Amazon is the big player. Amazon first to the party with Amazon Web Services and EC3.
But they've been building up this stuff.
We also have App Engine, and App Engine makes it incredibly
Even Facebook offering developer services.
really high-scale applications.
So if you're running servers, you might as well offer these kinds of services to developers. What's great is it empowers startups because it's very inexpensive now to create and deliver online products.
At 3.5 million Office 365.
So 3.5 million is a lot smaller.
Yes. Exabytes. But you cannot just store data, you also want to analyze it. And in our platform, we have many tools that make it really easy for you to analyze data sets without worrying about scalability. For example, with BigQuery, you can stream hundreds of thousands of records per second into the cloud and then query them interactively.
We're now at the 2-hour mark.
And
no sign of ending.
We also lead the industry in price and performance. And as hardware gets cheaper, we pass on these savings to you, so you see Moore's Law in the cloud. And moreover,
Paul and Mary Jo, if you're watching and you'd like to join us, you certainly can, and then we'll segue into Windows Weekly as soon as the keynote ends.
Upfront payments, or without having to forecast your
No mention of Google Glass either at this point. They talked about wearables, but they were watches.
But of course, what really matters to us is seeing what you developers do with our platform. And whether it's
the biggest story to me so far, I think, is TV and the ability to use Chromecast to put apps on TV.
Just two things about two recent
and for developers to create lean-back experiences in their apps that can be put on TV.
With a single backend developer built an application.
They're giving examples of how developers like Secret are able to really innovate quickly and inexpensively.
And they came to Google,
on the Google platform
because they needed a platform that can handle this kind of.
I think the ability for Android apps to show up on Chromebooks, although I'm not sure of the details yet, is significant as well.
Exactly
but also the other kinds of integrations and the similarity of UX across the two.
Yeah, a commonality across all platforms. And the Android phone and tablet seem like the hub.
Screens, the company behind Rising Star is using Compute Engine and BigQuery for the instant voting app, and it's been battle tested to run at 1.3 queries per second.
Robots that kill people, another protester in the crowd.
At the beginning...
I don't think Google is actually building robots that kill people yet.
All right.
But they bought a company that makes them.
That's right.
At the beginning of each application is a developer who wants to get their idea out to the market as quickly as possible, no matter what it is.
There was a protester earlier who was removed by security. I imagine this one will be as well.
We try to make our cloud not just highly functional, but also really easy to use. And as you've seen, the best mobile apps...
I'm curious what that cracking sound is. Are there firecrackers or...
That's in the cloud.
It's a gun...
It's here. It's someone else.
Oh, it's you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's a relief.
It's not the feed.
Do see a lot of security moving now.
And we have the tools that make it really easy for you to build those applications.
I think my neighbor
with
is
small teams and little focus on operations.
I'm just glad to know that it wasn't gunfire. Thank you.
New tools, very, very cool new tools that make it really easy to understand your server-side applications. So please welcome Greg DeMichele, who's going to show you some demos.
Thanks, so they are focusing on productivity. I hesitate to break away. This is developer productivity. This is not, you know, a general purpose keynote at this point. This is definitely aimed at developers. It's a compelling product from Google, but not a consumer-facing product. However, I don't want to break away because I fear that Larry Page may show up at the end, and we don't want to miss that. He did last time. Now, what
this application allows me to record a walk I took through the city, share it with my friends, let them experience the same walk I took, and then share comments. Now, since this whole purpose of this application is to share information,
Google says it wants to be in the car, it wants to be in the TV.
How do I do that?
It, of course, wants to be in your pocket and on your wrist and on your desktop.
That lets me save and retrieve
in the office and at home.
Now that could be application data, it could be user preferences or setting, and I do this with no server-side
This is absolutely what Microsoft's plan was some decades ago.
It can be
a computer on every desk running Microsoft software has turned into a computer everywhere you are.
Doesn't have an internet connection, they can still walk through this walk.
Running Google software.
And I'm a cloud guy, so what really gets me excited
Tim Stevens tweets, the protester said you all work for a company, let me find the tweet, that wants to kill people in a sense. In essence.
App Engine or Compute Engine. And that's, in fact, what I've done in this case. So let me show you the web.
So Patrick Delahanty's telling me this is a 3-hour session, so if they keep to schedule, we'll be over in 45 minutes.
Yesterday and recorded it.
He's telling people in the audience not to work for Google.
Now, if you look at the comments right away, you can see that there's something a little funky going on. I have code here to replace common character sequences with emoticons. But if you look at that, they're sort of running amok. I'm putting emoticons where they don't belong. So I've got some sort of bug that I need to find.
So this is Cloud Save. It syncs location waypoints
GitHub for this application.
Cloud Save
with the cloud.
Cloud Save syncs arbitrary data, and he was using waypoints.
Hundreds of servers. And there's no way to debug.
Is this similar to the document sync that Apple was pushing and has never really delivered on in iCloud?
Yes. Yes, I think we're more likely to actually work because Google builds.
This is what they do.
Now the platform is
Google has a lot of very good abstract data storage systems that scale.
Right.
And they build everything that we use from them on them. So.
It's clearly a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, why the developers were applauding Cloud Save. And if they're developers who also happen to develop on Apple platforms, they realize this is something Apple promised 2 years ago and has never delivered on effectively.
Yeah. So he's setting a breakpoint in code that's running on the server. That's interesting. Is that what he said he was doing?
I'm determined on this one.
Unfortunately, the Wi-Fi is not cooperating. That's not surprising, really.
Find that line of code, go into debug, set the watch point.
The protester says you all work for a totalitarian company that builds robots that kill people.
Okay,
patience pays off.
So what did he do there, Kevin? And why is it important? And why were they applauding?
So I'm actually going to use a conditional watch point.
He set a watch point in his code, a breakpoint in his code, except the code isn't running on the machine he's using. It's running on the Google server.
He's debugging in the cloud.
So he's debugging what the code that's running in the cloud using the IDE, which is pretty nice. This is normally where you resort to print statements and messaging and things.
Right.
And being able to do that is quite nice.
This is something web developers want. I mean, that was the promise of Ruby on Rails, is that you could modify your code while it's running, or in this case, debug it.
Urs do my code reviews because he never makes regular expression errors. So that's cloud debugging. But when I was looking at that application, I also noticed that the application seemed a little slow to me. It seemed like it wasn't really responding right. How do I find out what's happening in production there? Another new feature of the platform is cloud tracing.
Wow.
Cloud tracing gives me a tracing view.
You get breakpoints and tracing on clouds, on software running on somewhere out there. Again, this is something developers might get excited about, not probably end users. What does it mean for end users? Does this mean better web software?
It probably means faster development time, and possibly like developers who aren't used to using cloud stuff, and all the people who've been making mobile apps have now got something that works in a similar way to the mobile dev SDKs. You know, this is looking more like Xcode or Eclipse, except that it's running debugging code in the server.
That's not really the best practice for
Eclipse is the open source IDE, integrated development environment, that I think most people still use to develop for Android, right? There are other choices, obviously.
There's Google's new one as well, which I've forgotten the name of, which is based on Idea.
Idea was a commercial product.
Yes, and then Google worked with them to build. What is it called?
I imagine that's what he's using, right?
No, he's using the browser.
It's in the browser, but okay.
This is the
browser as a IDE.
So there's basically this is the console for managing the cloud stuff, except that it now can actually debug the code, which is very nice. This is, if you compare this to how
Android Studio is what it was called, right?
Android Studio, yeah. If you compare this to how Amazon's cloud console looks, this is much nicer.
Yeah.
Amazon's cloud console is very complicated and fiddly, and tends to involve you having to go and edit pieces of XML inside it and things.
With cloud monitoring,
so there's sort of a lot of extra ceremony on top of the code.
Disks, VMs, that
and you can get, looks like there's
you also get service level monitoring.
Yeah, profiling stuff.
We automatically detect what services you're using and give you.
This is very hard to do in the cloud, obviously, because you don't have access to the hardware.
Services. We automatically detect over a dozen open source packages, such as Redis in this case, and automatically give you intelligent default monitoring for those. So with no additional work, I get a dashboard that helps me stay on.
Engadget is reporting that both protesters were escorted out peacefully. They were not tackled.
Everybody who runs a service knows the last thing you want is your customers to be the first ones to find out that you've got a problem. You want to have alerting in the event of problems. Cloud monitoring includes alerting. So I can go and set custom alerts on any of a variety of metrics, whether it's on App Engine or Compute Engine or Redis. In this case, I have an alert set up to tell me if Redis exceeds its memory threshold for more than 5 minutes.
This is language agnostic, right, Kevin?
I want to be notified. Do I want to be emailed?
Or is it Java only?
I'm not sure. That wasn't made clear. Or maybe we talked over it.
4 new developer productivity features coming to the cloud platform. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Urs.
Thank you, Greg. So you just saw 4 new features that make it much easier to build and understand your backend. Cloud saves securely, saves and synchronizes across devices, no server-side code, just a few lines of client code. Cloud Debugger gets you desktop debugging in your server.
Again, these are products developers might be interested in, aimed squarely at Amazon.
How cool is that? Cloud tracing then shows you.
But it's getting to be a clouded market with Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, even Facebook all offering.
And cloud monitoring gets you
cloud services for developers.
With almost no setup.
Rackspace. I mean, you can go on and on.
Open source packages.
Amazon was first to the market, first to see that there was a market for this. And Amazon Web Services really probably still dominate. But I imagine Google's coming on strong.
without worrying about scalability. And today, even when you're using MapReduce, which we invented over a decade ago, it's still cumbersome to write and maintain analytics. I wonder if
he's going to mention Borg.
And if you want streaming analytics, you're out of luck. And in most systems, once you have more than a few petabytes,
tool they've recently open sourced.
They kind of break down. So we've done analytics at scale for a while, and we've learned a few things. For one, we don't really use MapReduce anymore. It's great for simple jobs, but it gets too cumbersome as you build pipelines, and really everything is an analytics pipeline these days. So what we needed was a new analytics system that scales to exabytes, that makes it really easy to write pipelines, that optimizes these pipelines for you, and that lets you use the same code.
We mentioned when we covered Microsoft's Build keynote and Apple's WWDC keynote that these keynotes were aimed at developers and not to be too disappointed if there wasn't a lot of consumer-facing information, but Google really delivers on that promise with this keynote. Long, detailed stuff developers definitely care about. Not a lot of consumer-facing stuff. You almost have to read between the lines to see how this would impact consumers.
And in real time.
Yeah, I mean, they led with the visual stuff, and they're digging down as we go along.
Yeah. But even what they led with was about developers changing how, they work with Android to make a better-looking product.
Welcome Eric Schmidt.
Eric Schmidt walking onto the stage now. That's a surprise.
Thanks, Urs.
Eric, chairman of the board, but
this demo is about
performing that's not that Eric Schmidt.
World Cup matches with cloud data flow.
Who is this? Is his name Eric Schmidt?
Yes,
he needs to change his name right now.
Negative or positive sentiment per
he had a lot of trouble with email.
Correlate the sentiment to match data. I'd like to thank the developer.
Man, he got me excited for a moment.
For the support in using the Twitter and data APIs for this demo. Cloud Data Flow is an SDK and a managed service for building big and fast parallelized data analysis pipelines. You write a program as a logical set of data transformations.
Reminds me of the episode of 30 Rock where a new cast member's name is Jack Donaghy, the man in charge, immediately says, no, your name is Fred. There's only one Jack here.
Here's the code for my sentiment pipeline.
This is not Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, the chairman of the board, but in fact, another one.
The first transform extracts a
although I would love it if Eric Schmidt would talk about data flow. I really would.
Now, this pipeline is running in streaming mode. However, data flow can also
wow, we are getting very geeky here. This is the kind of stuff that you really have in breakout sessions.
At archive data, say in BigQuery, and produce the exact same analysis. One pipeline, batch, or stream. Now let's drill into the second transform, Tweet Transformer. Tweet Transformer is responsible for transformation and mapping of my data.
I don't know what to do at this point. We are eating into Windows Weekly, and we would like to very much get to Windows Weekly. But I hate to miss anything important. The question is Larry Page going to take the stage at some point, or even the other Eric Schmidt?
This parallelization is optimized for you by the data flow service.
Authorot tweets, if only Azure had all this stuff. Oh, right.
Now, finally, I apply another transform to calculate the average for all the tweets in a 3-minute sliding window.
Daniel Jalkut, who's a well-known Apple developer, but also in the audience, says Larry Page did have a big finale planned, but he's stuck in traffic, so they're going to do show and tell till he shows up. I don't think that's true, but it's a great rumor.
Code to create a sliding window and average all the tweets within that window, reducing a massive collection of data down to 1 record per minute per team. Dataflow handles all.
I can imagine there are a few journalists sitting in the room whose legs are twitching uncontrollably.
Awesome. We have a pipeline. Let's switch gears and take a look at what this would look like in production.
Oh no, let's not take a look at what this would.
Is my deployed pipeline shown in the data?
By the way, no mention either of
into the cloud developers console.
Gimmies for the developers. This is Christmas Day for Google devs.
Correlates one-to-one to the code that I just showed you, making it easy for you to understand your processing topology. If I scroll down further, I can see other information. For example, the total records of processed. So I started this pipeline this morning right before I went on stage, we processed around 5.2 million tweets. And right now I'm running at about 406 records a second.
I think Gina Trapani is probably interested in
with this pipeline, but I wanted to show you that my data is actually flowing. Now, our goal is to make data flow monitoring valuable and integrated with the rest of your cloud development pipeline. Sorry, cloud development experience. Now, let's take a look at what we can do with this data. This is a replay of the opening match between Brazil and Croatia. This represents an analysis of millions and millions of tweets and tens of thousands of touch information represented in the match. Now, if I scroll back and forth, I can see something interesting happen at the 71st minute.
Here's an image from one of our chatters. Actually, this comes from The Verge, of Larry Page in the audience, sitting, watching. So he is in the house, as they say, but I don't know if he'll be talking.
There's also some information that's been injected for me by my pipeline that says controversial call related to the goal. So this is giving me some insight as to why there may be some negative sentiment towards Brazil, but I still don't trust my algorithm. So fortunately, I've had Dataflow stream all of my raw data into BigQuery so that I can easily perform interactive analysis.
So we're going to pause a little bit. If you're watching this, we are going to actually pause the Google I.O. playback so you don't miss any of it. Our guests, Parmy Olson from Forbes, Kevin Marks, will stay here while we take a little break and thank our sponsor. We couldn't do this broadcast, or many of our broadcasts, without helps from our sponsors, including the great folks at Gazelle. If you see a new gadget later at Google I.O., we're still waiting. Will there be a new tablet? Will there be new Android phones? Are you ready to sell some of your old stuff to buy the new stuff? You can do it at Gazelle. Thinking about getting the new HTC One, the M8, I love it. Or maybe you just got a new iPad and you're ready to get a deal on it so you could buy the next one. Gazelle wants to buy your used Apple, Android devices, even BlackBerry, Samsung, and Microsoft Surface tablets. You can lock in your price today for 30 days. So that gives you time to decide whether the new one is worth it, to transfer your data over, to get everything up and running. Then when you pull the trigger, Gazelle will send you a box prepaid mailer. You don't ever pay the postage. They'll even buy your broken iPhones and tablets. If it's worth more than $1, they pay the postage. Risk-free. You get paid fast, too, by check, PayPal, or get an extra 5% with an Amazon gift card. If you buy a lot of stuff on Amazon, that's a great deal. GAZELLE.com. They paid more than $100 million now to over 700,000 customers. It's where we sell our old stuff. It's where you should sell your stuff. Gazelle.com. Fast, easy, and you get a great price for your stuff. Gazelle.com. All right, we go back now to live coverage. Well, it's not live anymore, but what was live coverage of Google I.O.
The best price and the best performance of any cloud. We released hundreds of new features in just the last year, and we're seeing incredible growth thanks to all of you who are using the platform. And I'm very excited to see.
We are ready to move on, however, Google Play, the next subject.
Behind you. Thank you. And now...
He's wearing a World Cup jersey, I think, isn't he?
And now
yeah.
I would like to introduce Ellie to talk about Google Play. Ellie.
Ellie Powers takes the stage. She's Google Play's product manager.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ellie, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be talking to you about a few things that we're doing to help you all create amazing user
She is also wearing a smartwatch.
And also grow your businesses.
Looks like maybe that's the
Google Play
LG.
is the key to getting your app into the hands of millions of users globally. More users than on any other platform. And Google offers app developers a wide range of cross-platform tools, and we build on this every year.
Maybe I was premature.
And now I want to talk about a few ways
not the consumer-facing part of Google Play.
Developers differentiate their applications and accelerate momentum. We've been making aggressive investments across development tools, ways to distribute and engage, and new mechanisms to generate robust revenue for your business. So I'm going to talk today about a few of our efforts in each of these areas. What we're doing to help you develop, what we're doing on distribution, and what we're doing to help you monetize your apps. So let's talk first about development. Building a great application. A key part of this is testing. You've told us that testing can be painful, And we want it to be easy. Today, we are completely thrilled to announce that the Purify team is joining Google. Purify offers the most sophisticated...
So I think we're going to break away from this and go to Windows Weekly. I don't want to be too far behind. We'll continue to monitor the stream. If Larry Page takes the stage, we'll go to it, of course. But I think at this point, this is a developer conference, a very aggressively developer conference, and I think that's appropriate, but probably not something that we need to cover live. Reminder, though, that right after Windows Weekly, in a couple of hours, Google, well, an hour after this ends, whenever that might be, This Week in Google, and we will talk about this. Jeff and Gina, Jason Howell, Mike Elgin, all there right now, and we'll get their thoughts and their analysis coming up on This Week in Google in a couple of hours. So you've been watching live coverage of the Google I/O keynote taking place even as we speak for the last hour and a half, 2 hours and a half in the Moscone Center, Moscone West. We'll continue to monitor it. If anything important happens, we'll let you know. But let's get ready for Windows Weekly. Thanks for joining us. That concludes this special live broadcast of TNT. Thank you, Kevin Marks, for being here. We appreciate it.
Always nice to be here.
Thanks to Parmy Olson, who left a little earlier from Forbes magazine. Thanks to you all for joining us. TNT, of course, normally 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 1700 UTC every Monday through Friday with your daily dose of tech news. This, we thought, would be the big story of the day. I'm not sure it was. Google announcing, though, quite a few new initiatives, SDKs for the L version of Android, 5,000 new APIs, and a new design, very card-focused design, but they spoke a little bit about materials and a new library called Palette that gives the design a unique kind of, and I think very fresh look. Android One, an inexpensive sub-$100 platform for developing nations. They talked about Polymer, a to-the-metal library for game programmers on Android. Project Volta, designed to improve battery life on the new L. They also mentioned Android Wear, something we've known about for some time, but did mention 3 watches that would be available soon, the LG G and the Samsung Gear Live, both of which you could pre-order later today on the Play Store. They didn't mention when that would be delivered or the price. Moto 360, the Motorola smartwatch, they merely said available later this summer, but it did confirm it will have a circular display. They also talked about Android Auto, a way to cast to an automobile. The Android Auto Alliance, quite large, with many, many members, including all the big players, Chevy, Ford, Jeep, and so on. Android TV, an interesting initiative, I guess, to get developers to create a lean-back experience in their Android apps and to provide a capability to get those Android apps up onto the TV, either through TV manufacturers. They said Sony and Sharp would have TVs later this year that support Android TV, but also through Google's own Chromecast device. They showed new technologies for Chromebooks that allows you to run Android apps on your Chromebook. That could be very big. They didn't explain the details, however, but we will find out, I'm sure. And now they're talking about cloud services for developers. So there you go. That is so far what Google's announced at Google I/O's keynote. I'm sure there'll be more to come. We will follow it. And we're going to take a break, come back with Windows Weekly in just a few minutes. Thanks for joining us. I'm Leo Laporte. See you next time. Bye-bye.